EWBSX, the cyberbully. Nicotine for your ears.
You may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Astrolabe. It is a good day. It is Thursday. It is a beautiful day. It's a great day to talk about some chinks. There we go. Get ourselves demonetized from YouTube straight off the bat. Our president has taken the entire entourage over to Chinatown, and they are negotiating. They are engaging in diplomatic relations, and we're starting to get a few leaks out. I guess not leaks. We're getting reports about potential progress being made, and it's kind of interesting. There's a number of different stories that are all kind of intersecting in my head, and I was trying to figure out a way to like present them and tie them together, kind of. But you've got JD Vance, who is the head of this new task fraud, new fraud task force. Fraud task force, yes, new fraud task force, and they happen to be targeting California, and specifically Los Angeles. Heyo, Dave. What do you mean, finally?
Finally, a morning LeBay.
LeBay, yeah. She says LeBays. LeBay when she says it's singular for some reason. Thank you, Dave, for the $47. What do you mean, finally, a morning lab? It was just did a morning lab just the other day. Dave Johnson.
You know, Dave Johnson is the gayest person to ever walk this green earth.
Here is the biggest, gayest man in the world.
So gay.
Thank you, Gabe Johnson. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you for the $47. Also, big shout out to Lurch, who sent over $50 of magical internet money. And it's a good day. Thank you, guys.
Boner alert.
I've got a couple of eyelashes that are sticking together, and it feels like I have a bug that keeps like brushing against my eyelash. It's driving me crazy. It's going to make my eyes start watering. Thank you also to Barnden gifting 5 subs. We've got Jess36. Is that a real name? Victor Zabo. We got JLH06. I know that guy. Timethus89. I recognize you. And Spud Ruckus. I recognize all you guys. Patriots getting gifted subs here early in the morning. Thank you to Pale Morning Dude for the 500 kicks. I hope you're not actually rage quitting. And also thank you to, what do we got? We got Jay Sizzle, we got Creek Dweller, we got Sculptor Sam, we got Lavendus7, we got Jeff Accordion, who have all resubscribed over on Kick. Thank you to all of you guys. Appreciate your support of the Erickson family operation here. Please do go to, let me put the tip link in here. Tips.kingpill.com. Tips. I can't type and talk at the same time. Tips.kingpill.com. There we go. That is pinned. Mrs. Kingpild is in the chat putting together her nice list. We went to Lowe's and Home Depot yesterday, looking at their supply of refrigerators, looking at getting a second refrigerator, maybe a freezer, trying to decide which route we're going to go. And then also looking to see, they had their Mother's Day sales, and then they've got the Memorial Day sales coming in. So we were Heinz says, once I finally start making more money, I'll tip more. I tell my wife the same. Oh, Heinz the Patriot, our great ketchup boy. Yeah, so we're checking out the refrigerators and the deals and stuff. Memorial Day's coming up, so we'll probably end up pulling the trigger on something there. But we had an experience of Eastwood meeting consequences. He's at the age where he is pushing all the limits that he can, and I said, this is the boundary, and if you cross this boundary, this is the thing that's going to happen that you're not going to enjoy. And he immediately proceeded to cross the boundary while looking directly at me. And so the boundary was, I bought him one of those little American flags with like the stick, with a little flag on the top. And I bought it for him at Lowe's, and we were at Home Depot, and he was just being a maniac the whole day. So by the time we got back to the truck leaving Home Depot, Amy and I were both just at our wits' end. And we've known the guy his whole life, so we're very, very familiar with his behavioral patterns. And his dad's serious? Let's test the child shit test. Exactly, Ryan Isaac. Yes, his dad's serious. He learned that dad was serious. I told him that if he didn't keep the flag to himself, he has his whole back seat, his whole space there. If he didn't keep the flag to himself, he was going to lose it. Even though I just bought it for him, I said, you will lose that if you don't keep it to yourself, because I know exactly what he'll do, especially if he's agitated about something. He'll sit there and he'll poke us with it, or he'll like whack it back and forth between us. And he's clever enough to do the like, oh, look at me, I'm just kind of aimlessly swinging it around as I bounce it back and forth off of your heads. And so we sit down in the truck, and I hadn't even put the truck in gear yet. We're sitting there, and he starts reaching out. He starts whapping me on the shoulder with it. And I'm wearing the glasses here, so I'm watching him in the rearview mirror. I can see exactly what he's doing. He's looking right at me. He's like, bap, 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 bap. And I gave it maybe 10 or 15 seconds to see if he was just going to kind of test a little bit and then back off. And if he'd have done that, then he would have been good. But he kept it up, so I reached back, I grabbed it, I snapped it in half, and threw it on the floor. And he was not expecting that. And it hurt me, It hurt me. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to. But I had to. He backed me into the corner. I told him I was going to do it. I set the boundary for him, and he walked right across it. So forced my hand. I had to do it. And so we ended up having a good conversation with him about it. We connected it into confession, the necessity of confession as a sacrament, and he was, I think he was taking some of it in. He's a clever boy when he decides he wants to be. Ben Shapiro on 2X says, "Is this a metaphor for Iran?" Maybe. Perhaps it is. Perhaps. But and I have a plan for a follow-up thing with it on that subject, but he may be listening right now, so I'm not going to say what it is. Agitprop Master says, the boy required discipline. He actually likes you better for being the parent who brings play and discipline. Yes, that's the goal. That's the goal. And it's being a parent and parenting your child and watching yourself and your child, and then thinking back about like what your parents were going through. It's given me just a whole new appreciation for my parents. That the things that I put them through, and the sorts of disciplines and stuff that I resented them for at the time, that I look back on now and I'm like, I'm so glad. I'm so glad because things didn't go great as it was throughout like most of my 20s. Things weren't great. I was on some rocky waters there for a while. But yeah. If I didn't have the original foundation that they'd given me, I can't even imagine where I would have wound up. So Yeah. My poor wife. Maybe she should have talked to my mom about what like, I don't know, 8 to 14, 15-year-old me was like. I was a pain in the ass. I was really obstinate and also like very, very intelligent. That's always been like, I've always been way ahead of my peers. Just that's been one of my features is my intelligence. And so at a very early age, I was arguing her into corners. She was just kind of like straightforward. Let's get through this here. And I would get her caught in like verbal traps and stuff, to the point where she learned like, no, this is not a debate. No, you are going to experience corporal punishment. That's the thing that's going to get through to you. And so, yeah, it's a great experience. It's a great experience in your own repentance, to raise a child. This is why like I don't have negative feelings towards people who haven't had the experience, but it's like it's such a transformative experience that it's a level of human experience akin to going from like teenager to adult, going from adult to parent is that fundamental. So like it's kind of a hard thing to talk about because I don't want to, people who have had a hard time having kids or can't find the person or whatever. There's lots of people who it's not necessarily their own choice that they're not having children. So it's not that I look down on them or anything. It's just that there's certain things that you just can't relate to. And it's not like the nitty gritty about the parenting part of it or the experience of living with a child. It's watching something that's a little miniature version of you, going like stumbling and falling over the most obvious easy hurdles and working out the kinks in the personality and everything and being like, holy shit, that was me. That's how dumb I was. So it's been it's been very good for my own personal growth. I can speak for myself, and then for my new appreciation and reconnection with my parents, and a deep appreciation for all of their many sacrifices. My wife says we definitely didn't date for long yet. Here we are, 8 years later. Yes, 8 years later. Our anniversary is coming up here at the end of the month. Agile Master says, it's interesting as an adult reprocessing the moves your parents made either in concert with or in reaction to their parents, what helped, what didn't. Yeah, it is. And if we want to go full astrolabe here, then there's you can then extrapolate even further up from that and begin looking at the way that societal generations relate to their ancestors, their parents. And then you could go even further than that, and you can look at the like civilizational level and how the child civilizations relate to the parent civilizations. Yeah, we're all reacting to our father. Speaking of astrolabe, I have a great Patriot announcement. Great friend of the show, Kyle Carroll, texted me the other day and said I've got you got what's your address? I got a package to send to you. I gave it to him, and he was like, all right. He's like, well, it's actually going to show up in 2 parts, unfortunately. But one will be there tomorrow. Next one will be the following day. This is last week. And so here is package number 1. I don't know how well it's going to be captured here, but I will tweet out pictures of this later on. You probably can't quite, let's see if I get the light on it just right. You might be able to make out some of the inscriptions on it. Yeah, probably not really. I'll post some pictures of it later on. But you guys know what this is. I'll show you it. So you've got this part turns. I think that's the only part that moves on this one. This was package 1. This is an astrolabe. It's nice, it's heavy, solid wood, got felt on the bottom. Perfect. So I'm gonna have to readjust the studio somehow to get these like I got to figure out a way to get this back there in some form or fashion. I might have to move the room around a little bit to do that. But there's one. It is a fucking astrolabe. And then, number 2. It's a box. What's in the box? It is another astrolabe. A different sort of astrolabe. Get the light on this one here. So you've got the needles here that turn. This part rotates against the back of it, and then it's got a stand. Let's see if I can get this here. It's got the stand on the back, and then these components here. This thing that rotates, and you've got the astrological signs on the back here. 2 frickin' astrolabes for the astrolabe set. I got to deal with the mirroring here. There we go. 2 astrolabes. Kyle Carroll, you, sir, are the Patriot of the Month. The first monthly Patriot of the Month. The reward has been given. The recognition has been given to Kyle Carroll. Thank you, man. Deeply, deeply appreciate it. I got to figure out where I'm going to put these. And I think, I don't know, I'm very autistic about having like outlets or cords or windowsills or something showing in the back. So I gotta figure out how to arrange things such that I can have things there and light them properly. And it is a jerry-rigged masterpiece in here. It is nobody would understand how it works except for me. If somebody had to come try to troubleshoot this, it would take them an entire day probably just to like trace all the wiring and stuff and get it all figured out. It's very, very much customized. Hope Hild says crazy that those are being used on ships with all those moving parts. Yeah, I can't even like, it doesn't make sense to me how astrolabes work. Like, I know what they are conceptually, but they're, even a sextant. Like, I've never really fully appreciated how a sextant works. These are like forms of natural understanding and wisdom that were much more naturally readily available to people back then. I mean, sailing was a specialized skill, but it was a core specialized skill. So it just, my brain doesn't operate on those wavelengths. So like every time I hear it explained and I kind of grasp it, then it just goes and just like, it's like smoke that just wisps out from the hollow between my ears. Oh, let's see. Okay. Yeah, expensive. Yeah, this was a extremely generous gift. Very, very generous. Where's the alembic? Ooh, straight buster. Straight buster with the deep cuts there. I don't know if the alembic is going to happen. But you never know. There's a possibility. It could. Ball knowledge, yeah. Okay. Let us... I don't remember what I was saying before I went off on all of that. But please tip your streamer, tips.kingpill.com. Let's get started. First of all, we have a preview for week 69 of the Pseudolabe. This one here is a Niles wave. I have a feeling I know what this is going to be. I also know already what week 69 is going to be. And you guys, you will be incurably gay if you miss it. You are contractually obligated as a loyal Labian. You are contractually obligated to attend this Pseudolabe this Saturday. I'm not going to tell you quite yet what it is, but in 2 days, I'll tell you tomorrow. We'll tell you tomorrow what it's going to be. You got to make sure you show up for the Labe tomorrow to hear what it's going to be. How's that? But you will be the big gay if you miss it. The last one was tremendous. I did it on, ended up doing it on Monday because I missed Saturday and Mother's Day was on Sunday. So I did it on Monday. Tremendous. Phenomenal. Go back and watch that one. Ghostbusters plus Kung Fury. This next one is going to be a very, very different vibe. Very different vibe. But very, very good. Very good. So here we go. Here we have a preview. Niles Wave. Oh, yes. My home!
Stacy, can I come over?
Oh, yes.
After school, we can hang around by the pool. Hang by the pool. Did your mom get back from her business trip? Is she there, or is she trying to give me the slip?
You could not hit me more directly in the nostalgia.
I'm not the little boy that I used to be. I'm all grown up now, baby, can't you see? Stacy's mom has got it going on. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long. Stacy, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong, but I'm in love with Stacy's mom. Stacy's mom has got it going on. Stacy's mom has got it going on. Stacy, do you remember when I mowed your lawn? Mowed your lawn. Your mom came out with just a towel on. Towel on. I could tell she liked me from the way she stared. And the way she said, you missed a spot over there.
Oh, that hair.
And I know that you think it's just a fantasy, but since your dad walked out, your mom could use a guy like me. Stacy's mom has got it going on. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long. Stacy, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong, but I'm in love with Stacy's mom. Stacy's mom has got it going. She's got it going. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long. Stacy, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong. I'm in love with Stacy's mom. I'm in love with Stacy's mom. Wait a minute, Stacy, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong, but I'm in love with Stacy's mom.
Ah! Okay, I have a confession. I have never actually watched Frasier, but I have deep core memories of waking up in the middle of the night and walking out when my parents were watching it. My parents were sitting there watching it and hearing it, like sitting outside and like in the living room around the corner from the kitchen where I could kind of hear what they were doing and talking about, and hearing my dad. My dad has a really distinct laugh, this big booming laugh when something really cracks him up, and hearing that. So I've never actually sat and watched it myself, but there's a number of other movies or TV shows at the same time. There's like the You've Got Mail era. That time where it was a little early for me. I never really got into those TV shows as much, but even though I didn't watch them, I've got deep sentimental attachments to them from hearing my parents watching them. Seinfeld, yeah, Seinfeld would be another one. I never watched it that much. I've seen a handful of episodes, and then I've gathered stuff from when I would listen. I'd sit there with my ear up to the wall and listen. This is when I was like 5 or 6. Such good memories. Oh. Okay. Thank you, sir. A remarkable propagandist. Here's a new one from Heavy Pulp. Hopefully I'm not getting ahead of you with this one. And I mean, hey, if it's in the next wave, then so be it. We get to see it twice. This is The Call, a heavy pulp original made with Grok Imagine. After receiving a cryptic phone call, a high-level government official embarks on a journey to deliver a mysterious briefcase to a highly classified military facility in the desert. We're getting such good content. The content is off the charts, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
It's time.
In the town on the hill where the apples grow, the church bells ring every hour or so. I took a little walk just to see the ships coming in. The sun rose up right above the highway. Black, blue, red, yellow, golden skyway. It's like the day that you jump into the wind. I can't go back down to that.
All you have to do is leave the briefcase and exit the area immediately.
Please tell me she's okay.
Enough! Wait for our call, and you'll get to see your daughter tomorrow.
In the streets, someone's bride buying Egyptian sheets. Window display at some little store in town. And there's my reflection against the morning light. Hello, Mr. Ghost, Mr.
Just flying around that corner.
White. You better comb your hair, you better wipe that George Clay off the brow. You better stand up straight, man. These people recognize me.
Awesome big boats of cars.
I can't go back down to that water again.
Requesting entry.
Lord, carry me like a sailing ship. Comfort me before I slip down the dark side of the moon. All this spinning around hurts my head. I just sit here lonesome for you. There's a million things I would rather do instead.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but we can't let anyone leave until the test is complete.
I just sit here lonesome for you. There's a million things I would rather do instead.
Man. I want it to be true. I want to know those things. What's going on over there? What do they got? What do they got hidden? What are they about to reveal to us? There's like obviously there's a spiritual component to the UFO thing. You know, the demons. But and by demons, just they're spiritual entities. They're spiritual entities that people are having encounters with. There's also a psychological component to it. You know, where you're dealing with stuff that's at the membrane between psychological phenomena and quote unquote real phenomena gets real porous as it gets closer, as they get closer and closer together. But then there's also just the more mundane and yet actually really fascinating component that is the like military technology, like advanced technology that is clearly there. There's clearly, whether you go full Ashton Forbes with the orbs creating a black hole and warping a jet away, or even just like experiments being done with gravity modification, which, I mean, those are two ways of saying the same thing, but That's the stuff that I find, like, frankly, the demonic aspect or the spiritual aspect of it is much more quotidian to me. It doesn't. It's not that I don't take it seriously, but it's like, oh yeah, There's spiritual entities that people have encounters with that manifest in particular ways and try to influence people in particular ways. That's like I've always lived in a world where that was the case. But the advanced military technology stuff, that's what gets me real interested. We got a tip that came in from Java, $20.
The white man is back, baby. The white man is back.
Didn't say a single thing, just tipping his streamer. Thank you, Java. Appreciate you. Straight Buster says Lovecraft wasn't wrong about seeing the supernatural driving you insane, or with cat names. Yes.
The N-word.
Yeah. If you stare at the supernatural, especially if you don't have a solid spiritual foundation, then you stare into the void, and the void stares back at you. Speaking of the void, there are incredible things happening on the PBD podcast. If you haven't seen this clip, you are wholly unprepared for what you're about to experience. You may think that you're prepared for this. You may hear the voice at the beginning and be like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm totally prepared for this." No, you would be wrong. You are not prepared for this.
Watching Game of Thrones, and I swear to God, if I see the actor Joffrey anywhere, I'm gonna be like, this guy. Like, you literally watch it. You're like, what a piece of, You watch The Mom. You watch some movies.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones messed me up. And I think it messed up a lot of the world because it got everybody into incest porn, because people started watching it. And how many people turned off the TV when Jaime and Cersei's hooked up? Or how many people got quiet and watched it?
Yep. Yeah, I definitely was not prepared for that to go that direction. I started listening to it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is funny. Patrick Bet-David got really mad about the actor who played Joffrey. He wants to punch him if he sees him in public somewhere. And then the schizo black man starts talking. And yeah, every word was a surprise. Literally, it left me exactly like this. This is the perfect. You could not plan this response. You could not plan this face. This is the nigger. What the fuck are you talking about? Well below average says he looks like he's channeling his Persian ancestry and wants to stone him to death. Oh, this is also in the same category of you are not prepared for what you're about to hear. I don't have any context for this at all, although I'm sure you could probably come up with a context based on the previous video. But yeah, this is a new DHS secretary, Mark Wayne Mullen.
And I don't walk away from the fact that I stand here as a Christian in front of you. I do want to admit that I'm a very flawed Christian. I'm not perfect.
Oh, that's good. I like hearing these sorts of humble admissions from my elected officials.
But my life changed when I got saved when I was 20 years old. Until then, my dad said I was more likely to go to prison than I was to be successful.
Oh, nice wholesome story, the sort of like a rags to riches, like the bad kid who was headed down, his life was headed down the tubes, and then he rescued it, and now he's successful, Secretary of Homeland Security.
Truth is, I probably was going down that path. I watched this little movie called American History X that really changed my life.
What?
I thought I'm never going to prison after that one.
That's it. That's the clip. What's going on? What, like... It's What world do we live in now? The DHS secretary just being like, yeah, I was really bad when I was a kid, and then I saw American History X and decided, I'm going to go right now. What did he mean by this? Legitimately, I don't know. I could go a few different directions with it, but what is he telling us? What was it about the little movie American History X that set him on the right path? What path was he on previously? What sort of secrets do you have, Mr. Mullen? Tell us. Fortunately for us, we have a president. We have an emperor. We have a great king named Donald Trump, who always tells it exactly like it is. A man of simple brilliance.
But you can say that we're going to reduce drug prices by 80%, and we won't get one Democrat vote. I don't know how they get away with it. That's why we call them the Democrats. We have a new name. They're Democrats because they're dumb.
So true, Mr. President. Many are saying this. Democrats. It was just sitting there. It was just sitting there waiting for someone to pick it up and run with it. And only my president has the absolute brass balls to pick up yet another crown, pull it out of the gutter, polish it, shine it, like he sits down and shines his own shoes every morning, and then just run with it. Democrats. What have we been doing? We've been calling them Democrats, and it was just right there, just waiting for us. They're Democrats. That's why we call them Democrats, because they're dumb. What else would you call them? So true, Mr. President. Speaking of Democrats, this is something that's really dumb. From Robert Sterling, during the Biden administration, H-1B visa holders were buying houses with 97 to 100% financing. 97 to 100% financing. H-1B visa holders. So they bring them over, set them immediately onto a track for a green card, give them automatic renewals, mass import them, and then give them free houses. 97% would come from the FHA, with the rest coming from state first-time homebuyer programs. First-time homebuyer programs intended for young people, intended for my generation of people entering the market, ready to buy a home, to get married, to settle down, to have children, to begin building wealth. And they gave them free homes through a first-time homebuyer program. Zero money down. Thanks to programs that were supposed to be helping low-income American families buy their own homes. FHA loans to non-permanent residents quickly grew to represent 6% of mortgage issuances. 6% of all mortgage issuances were FHA loans to non-permanent residents. The percentage was undoubtedly higher in places like the DFW area, where H-1B visa holders are disproportionately concentrated. I don't have anything against people in America on H-1B visas. Well, I do. I've said it before and I'll say it again that I found many of them to be great people on an individual level, and I wish them all nothing but the best. Sure, great, yes, I do wish them all nothing but the best. Individual immigrants, especially those here legally, are not at fault for flawed U.S. immigration policy. But this might be the most radicalizing thing I've ever seen. Not only are American workers forced to compete for jobs, they're also forced to compete in the housing market against people bringing 0 to 3% of a house's cost to the closing table, versus the 10 to 20% most people have to pay. First, companies import mass numbers of H-1B visa holders, largely in back-office white-collar fields like IT and accounting. This essentially imposes a lower ceiling on domestic wages in these job categories. Next, these workers, who are generally concentrated in certain geographic areas, create more demand for housing, especially in good school districts, driving up home prices and the cost of living. Then, to top it off, they don't even have to save up money for a down payment. They can close on a $500,000 house with $0 to $15,000, plus a 97% FHA loan. And you know what? They wouldn't even have to come up with that $15,000. If they didn't have that $15,000, there's dozens of programs that would figure out some way to cover that $15,000 for them. Down payment assistance programs, special grants, bonuses at work, whatever. Meanwhile, ordinary American families are forced to come with $50 to $100K for the same down payment. I don't care how you feel about Trump or what your preferred immigration policies are. There's no defending this. Robert Sterling is writing this to basically a Silicon Valley sort of audience. It screws over hardworking American citizens several different ways over, and it's yet another reason why I will always be glad Trump won and Kamala Harris lost in 2024. Look at this. Look at this graph. This is percent of FHA mortgage locks. The share of FHA mortgage locks non-permanent residents from 2018 to 2026. 2018, it was at 0.5%. And you can see this is a post-COVID. This is a Joe Biden phenomenon. It was bad before Joe Biden. This was a Joe Biden phenomenon. Look at that. Just perfect, simple little graph right here. And then look where it is now. When you want to talk to me about how we need to let Democrats take power back, it'd only be like 2 to 4 years. What damage could they do in like 2 to 4 years? This is what they can do in 2 to 4 years. This is what we can do in 1 year. Don't give me this just let them have power for a couple of years. It won't be too bad. Matt Forney said the Biden administration was basically giving free houses to Indians. They were giving free houses to Indians. Trump cut the cord. The sudden wave of homes for sale in the Dallas area is likely Indians who suddenly found themselves underwater on their mortgages. And think of the volume of mortgages here. Think about the number of defaults that banks are having to eat now. Think about how much worse it would have been if it had gone on for longer. So that's why Nick is so mad at the Trump administration. Yeah. Operation Chimp Out indeed. Now, speaking of fraud, there's a whole trending topic on Twitter right now. Vance and Oz suspend 800 fraudulent LA hospices, and they defer $1.3 billion to California. 800 fraudulent LA hospices. This is not 800 fraudulent hospices in the country. This is not 800 fraudulent hospices in California. This is 800 fraudulent hospices in LA. Vice President J.D. Vance and CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz announced major steps against healthcare fraud. They're activating Dr. Oz's latent Turkish prejudices and inflicting him on the Armenian mob. They suspended 800 suspected fraudulent hospice providers in the Los Angeles area, and they're deferring $1.3 billion in Medicaid reimbursements to California. The actions come from President Trump's task force to eliminate fraud launched in March of 2026, which has already uncovered tens of billions of dollars in improper payments and introduced a nationwide 6-month moratorium on new Medicare enrollments for hospices and home health agencies. California officials argue the deferral hurts vital in-home support services that save costs by keeping seniors and disabled people out of nursing homes, while supporters see it as an essential taxpayer protection. This is Grok's summary of this. Now, an angle that I don't know that I've seen anybody take with this is election fortification activity. What do you think all that money, that $1.3 billion they're freezing here, what do you think those Medicaid reimbursements were actually going toward. Like, yeah, maybe they would actually hit the bank accounts they would actually hit bank accounts associated with illegal aliens or some other sort of immigrant or migrant or some other sort of poor person or whatever. But we've already seen all the different ways that they have of reaccessing that money and routing it through back into whatever various schemes they needed. What this is a freezing of $1.3 billion in federal money that was subsidizing the LA crime syndicate. Really, the California crime syndicate. And this is one of these stories that I'm kind of piecing these together, where you have what's happening in California. You've got this mayor in California, in LA County, who was just arrested as a Chinese spy, confessed as a Chinese spy. It's well documented the efforts that China has been making into penetrating its way into California. They've got connections with the cartels, and then also there's the Pacific Coast. And this is happening at the same time that Trump is in China trying to negotiate some sort of diplomatic détente with the Chinese, as they're also trying to secure the elections leading into the midterms. So, and then you've got the maybe the subplot, but maybe one of the most important plots here is the Spencer Pratt campaign. Suddenly, this is not just, a really talented sort of meme candidate who's a total long shot and, is more just kind of like has a cultural dynamic to it. If LA gets a Republican mayor at the time that all of this is happening, with a whole bunch of big money behind him, then this is a insurgency on California. There's so many different ways that you can look at what they're doing right now. In this sense, this is intended or not, this is effectively coming together as an operation for taking back California. And who are the big prominent candidates for the Democratic nomination in 2028 right now? It's basically the only two that are being talked about seriously are Gavin Newsom from California and Kamala Harris from California. They're also making moves against, it is yet to be determined whether it's going to pan out or not, but they're making moves against Jim Clyburn, who holds an incredibly important Democratic seat in South Carolina, which is key to securing the Democratic nomination. Then there's the whole oil infrastructure shenanigans that have been going on there that I've only kind of followed adjacently, but I know Luongo's been talking about them. There's this guy, Mike Ariza, who has been on Crypto Rich and on Tommy's podcast, and I've only caught a little bit of the stuff that he's talked about. But even Joe Rogan now is talking about the necessity of nationalizing the oil industry. There are moves afoot. We'll talk about more of that when we get to the China stuff here in a little bit. I wanted to read this from J.D. Vance. He said, "It's been almost 2 months since President Trump took the bold step of officially forming the task force to eliminate fraud. We've already uncovered tens of billions of dollars in defrauded taxpayer money, prosecuted dozens of fraudsters, and stopped billions in suspicious payments. And we're just getting started. So why has it taken the federal government until now to finally tackle fraud? Because Andrew Ferguson and I are taking a new approach. Here's how. Until President Trump's inauguration, federal anti-fraud efforts have been defined by a pay and chase approach. Federal agencies like HHS issue payments and then only take steps to identify fraud on the back end. The federal government might prosecute the alleged fraudsters, but only if the fraud is big enough. It's a flawed approach that's predictably exploited. Every year, the United States loses about $250 billion to fraud, but recovers only about $10 billion. Think about that. It's just accepted that $240 billion is lost to fraud every year. $240 billion. How many aircraft carriers is that? Every single year. And this is just the, like, on the record number. Plain and simple, pay and chase does not stop fraud. Our new approach starts with close coordination. We're orchestrating all federal agencies' anti-fraud efforts from the White House. Rather than haphazard fraud mitigation, the task force is focusing agencies' efforts on target programs, where spending is high but anti-fraud protections are low. We're already uncovering major fraud scandals across a range of federal programs. Kelly Loeffler has referred $22.2 billion in fraudulent loans for collection. That's the Small Business Administration. Linda McMahon has identified $1 billion in fraudulent student loans from ghost students. Ghost students, huh? You remember? You mean this is a phenomenon whereby people are supposedly brought into the country and they have federal profiles, social security numbers, bank accounts, all that sort of thing, but they don't actually exist? Shout out to Golden Donut, our great friend Darren from the King Pill Discord. He brought this up like a year ago. He said, how much of the what do you call it, the illegal immigrant number? How much of that is that number actually inflated? Like, there aren't as many here as are on the books, because this has actually been a coordinated fraudulent effort where they create a profile for a person in a like a taxpayer sense, but that physical human being never entered the country. But now they've created a like a carve out that they can funnel money through. They can use for vote harvesting. They've got all of these different social security numbers that they've collected to use for that purpose. Well, here you've got $1 billion in fraudulent student loans from ghost students. So who are those? Where's that? There's non-existent students who have received loans. They've received that money. Where is that money gone? Brooke Rollins has identified 14,000 luxury car owners receiving SNAP benefits in just one state. How would you determine that? How would you determine that there are 14,000 luxury car owners who are also receiving SNAP benefits? This implies a rather deep level of cross-examining databases. We're ramping up federal prosecutions against fraudsters, not just because American taxpayers deserve justice, but because active enforcement holds fraudsters accountable and deters fraud in the first place. Our message is simple: no fraud is too big or too small to prosecute. If you're defrauding the American taxpayer, we'll find you and take you to court. To do so, we established a new fraud division at DOJ, led by Assistant Attorney General Colin McDonald. In just the last 2 months, they've put fraudsters on notice. They've executed 22 search warrants against fraudulent daycare centers in Minnesota, including the Quality Learning Center. They've launched a major crackdown in LA against Medicare fraudsters who stole over $50 million. They've secured multi-year prison sentences against fraudsters in a $522 million healthcare scheme. We're also ordering the states to hold up their end of the bargain and police fraudsters in the federal programs they oversee. Today, governors in all 50 states were sent letters to use their existing resources to identify and prosecute fraudsters in the Medicaid program. And here's the thing: governors who do not comply with this will then have federal money withheld from them. And so much of their cartel, their syndicate, is built on the backs of being able to fraudulently access these vast sums of federal dollars and then funnel them into all these different schemes. So when you begin freezing that money, shit starts to break really fast. This is why it becomes so crucial to have governors who are on side. And there's some Democrat governors who are sort of nominally like, oh no, you can't do that, so bad. But then behind the scenes, they're basically just kind of negotiating. And in return for some sort of concession, then they'll play ball. But this is where it becomes very interesting if you get both a mayor in LA who is a Republican, effectively, and a Republican governor in California. The gubernatorial race in California becomes very, very interesting and very high stakes. And the Democrat apparatus there that's beset on all sides right now has to deal with two different major executive office races that are sort of spinning out of their control. Alongside aggressive prosecution, the tax force is preventing fraud before taxpayer money leaves the federal government. Agencies will now pay only when they are confident that a payment is legitimate and lawful. So there's a check before it goes out, and then they're investigating the fraud after it's gone out. As a result, Trump administration agencies are now establishing fraud indicators and analyzing data to detect patterns of fraud, things like unreasonable growth, impossible services, and other hallmarks of fraud. When an unacceptable risk of fraud is identified, the money stops. How do you think these Trump administration agencies are doing this? What is establishing fraud indicators and analyzing data to detect patterns of fraud? What sort of tools do you think are being used for that? Who do you think is putting those tools in there and implementing them? We're seeing this approach pay dividends already in one of the biggest federal programs, Medicare. Dr. Oz has identified nearly 800 suspected fraudulent providers of hospice and home health care services and withheld payment for their questionable services. So far, we've saved $1.4 billion in potentially fraudulent payments and have paused enrollment of additional providers while Dr. Oz roots out other fraudsters in the system. This is an approach that works and will be scaled to other federal programs. People want to talk about the military budget, military spending. Military spending is substantial, but even doubling it doesn't even come close to touching the entitlements. Yeah, how much inflation is fraud and illegals? And so much of it. It's like the fraud and everything is so deeply embedded into the system. It's become such a massive component of the body that you actually have to be prudent and careful about excising it so that you don't wind up bleeding the corpse out. The days of pay and chase are over. It's time to prevent and prosecute. Stay tuned for more. And they've got a Twitter account here now at WHFraudTF, White House Fraud Task Force. I think, oh yeah, here, listen to this video.
So, Dr. Oz, I want to make sure I understand this well. So you're saying that we kicked off 800 fraudulent healthcare providers off of the Medicare system, and not a single one of them called the government and said, hey, you made a mistake?
We've had a handful of calls. We're not sure they're legitimate yet, but it's less than 20 out of 800, and we're auditing them.
Unbelievable. So at least 780 are not even trying to claim that they're not fraudulent. And again, those are businesses that we were giving hundreds of millions, in some cases billions of dollars to, not to provide services, but to make a fraudster rich. It's just completely insane. Drives home the scale and scope of the problem. So, Dr.
So they're not even calling to say, hey, no, that was our money. Why are you shutting that down? This is just a funny little thing he said so there's a huge entourage that has gone over to China. And then there's a man who is conspicuously not there for probably obvious reasons. You're not going to have, it's already kind of crazy how much of the cabinet is there on Chinese soil, all in the same place together, all at the same time. And like all of the industrial leadership for the country, they're all together, all there, all at once. So you have to leave some people back home. So JD Vance is the one who stayed back home. Thank you, Emperor Atreides. And he said this.
You know, the president just landed in China a few hours ago. I always, you may know that because of Secret Service protocols that I don't travel outside of the country with the President of the United States. So on days today, I sometimes feel like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. I walk into the White House and it's very quiet and no one's there, and it takes me a second to realize exactly what's going on. But we've got a very big announcement today, actually a number of big announcements. And
He's like Macaulay Culkin from Home Alone walking up to Trump. The meme. Okay, so that was that about the fraud thing in California. Here's another one. Chris Rufo. I'm not going to read this whole article, but just a headline is enough. Exclusive. California spent nearly $189 million to give every state prisoner a free iPad. We interviewed a dozen death row inmates who told us that prisoners are using the tablets to watch porn, engage in X-rated chats, and groom minors on the outside. $189 million to give free iPads to prisoners, including death row inmates. They're giving them free iPads. And do you know how much they spent on this? Someone broke the numbers down. $189 million comes out to $2,000 per iPad. $2,000. They're not buying refurbished bulk discount where they could get them for, I don't know, $300. This is leaving aside the fact that we're giving free fucking iPads to death row inmates. Hey, sorry you're on death row. Here, have a porn machine. Go groom some kids while you're waiting to die. There's like this new thing that Gavin Newsom announced, where there's some initiative to give free diapers. It's like some free diapers initiative, and they're paying like $1 a diaper. There's like $1 or $1.15 or something like that. The funding for the program, based on the number of diapers that they're paying for, is something like $1 a diaper. It should be like 10 cents, 8 cents. So that delta there's more of that fraud. There's more of that election fortification. This is how the Democrat Party, this is how they exist. Strictly through things like this. Someone's getting their beak wet. And that's what keeps the wheels going. This is their patronage. This is how they keep the coalition together. Everyone just agrees to look the other way, to play their part whenever necessary. Because they're going to get their beak wet. But perhaps the times are changing. This video is surreal. I'm just going to play it. You got Spencer Pratt in the back here. You've got Catherine McPhee singing. I don't know how to feel about this. I said it's like when the Hollywood lib theater kids would sing songs for Hillary and Kamala, except now it's happening for the California Republican. Remember when they did like John Legend's Imagine with like the Zoom call? All the Hollywood libs they'd get together. You get like Josh Gad and Sarah Silverman and Will Ferrell, and you like pull them all together. You get the cast of SNL to come together, and they would do some theater kid song about how I'm with her. Now, something is happening. That spirit is rising up, and it's beginning to gaze across the horizon. Maybe it's time to explore some new lands. Maybe now we need to sing karaoke, Tina Turner, and shit on Karen Bass and Nithya Raman. Is that the cool thing to do now? Is that what's cool? Is Spencer Pratt making Republicanism cool? Look at this. He was on TikTok the other night.
Just to update, proof of life. The reason why I've been TikToking is one of the most famous humans on earth. Brought over some wine and a little care package. Just message and was like, just want to come support. And I can't say because when you're that famous, you're not trying to be on. It's my TikTok.
You gotta watch. You gotta watch.
Just know everything everyone's doing is creating so much magical powers, and I'm in the best mood ever. So even though I've been TikToking every 10 seconds, we're doing good. It's a good like mental health, like reboot. This is the aura I need. Oh my God, I get a cameo? Oh, I swear to God, it's a cheers. Thank you for that. That was, oh my God. I swear I didn't ask for that. I love her so much. So real one. Oh my God.
If you weren't watching, you didn't see the quick cameo from Avril Lavigne. Now, I feel the urge, I feel the pull to dive into the Avril Lavigne conspiracy, but we're not going to do that right now. We're not going to do that right now. This is incredibly strange times that we're living in. I'm feeling destabilized. What's happening? My dissident right-wing posters are posting videos of Avril Lavigne and Spencer Pratt drinking wine, getting wine drunk on TikTok before they take an absolute MAGA cock to the Democrat establishment in California. Look at this. Look how long, you guys, I have trusted plans I didn't even know existed. You have no clue the levels of plan trusting that I have been on. June 30th, 2009, Spencer Pratt at Prison Planet. What the fuck? A tweet from Spencer Pratt at Prison Planet. Thanks for having us on the show. Alex Jones is an American hero. Patriots have never been in more control. Look at this. From the 2012 roast of Donald Trump, the notorious roast of Donald Trump, Anthony Jeselnik called the shot, predicted the future.
You know, Donald Trump is such a douchebag that if you look up the word douchebag in the dictionary, there's a picture of Spencer Pratt. But if you look close, Spencer Pratt is holding up a picture of Donald Trump.
I cannot. It was foretold. I don't have a theory of mind for the black pillars. How can you see something like this and not believe that God loves us and wants us to be happy? This right here. This is the guy. This is the man who is going to take MAGA to the besieged patriots living behind the wall in California. This guy right here. I don't know if this may wind up getting the video pulled down from YouTube. So if you're watching this later on YouTube, hopefully it's still up there. And I would have had to just clip this part out, but it's worth playing. This is the guy. I'm going to read a thing in just a minute about how politically brilliant he is. This is the guy. John McDermott says, I profiled Spencer Pratt in 2022 for Esquire. This was years before the Palisades fire that burned his home and radicalized him into politics. At the time, he was just trying to make it in the content game, like so many other Angelinos. Spencer Pratt has always understood the assignment. Now, bear with me, because we're going to get back to China. We're circling around. Spencer Pratt has always understood the assignment. At 38 years old, reality TV's original bad boy is wiser, calmer, and more charming, but he's still searching for one thing. Quote, I want a hit show so fucking bad. He's sitting on a couch inside the corporate headquarters of cannabis startup Cannabiotics. a sprawling manufacturing plant and office space in Kudai, California, 10 miles southeast of downtown LA, tucked against the 710 freeway. This is the most California thing you're going to hear this month. His comment isn't directed at anyone, it's Pratt thinking to himself. But the 38-year-old, never one to hold his tongue, vocalizes the sentiment to the small film crew he's contracted to help produce a sizzle reel for what he hopes will turn him into a multimillionaire reality TV mogul. Hang around Pratt long enough and these naked admissions about coveting fame become routine. No one else in the crowded, cramped office lounge even registers the comment. The cameraman and sound tech continue preparing for the talking head interview Pratt is about to conduct. The photographer Pratt's hired to take still photos continues snapping away. Wanting a hit show hardly makes Pratt exceptional in Los Angeles, a city where everyone is desperate for fame. Pratt is remarkable, however, in his unabashed pursuit of it. 15 years after cementing himself as the original reality TV bad boy, Pratt is still openly pining for celebrity success and wealth. Or, as he says, getting checks. There is a sense of urgency to the announcement. 2 weeks earlier, MTV canceled its reboot of The Hills, the seminal reality TV series that made Pratt infamous in the late aughts. Pratt hoped the new iteration would resurrect his reality TV career, deliver him the kind of stratospheric fame to which he has always aspired, and allow him to ride out the rest of his days as an overpaid reality star. Instead, the reboot went largely ignored. I'm still in shock. We just lost a fucking TV show, Pratt tells me later. It's been an emotional roller coaster. I was arguing with a few of the cast members who said, we don't need the network, we just need a boom mic and some cameras, and we can do it ourselves. And I'm like, bro, I've been filming myself for 5 years. There's nothing like being on a television show. They could have been like the Jersey Shore cast, he says, minting million-dollar checks every few years for a reunion show. But Pratt's castmates are no longer willing to act reckless on camera for money, something Pratt has never had any qualms about. He wants to fill the void in his calendar by creating a new hit reality TV show, this time pulling the strings behind the camera as a producer. Pratt sits on a green love seat across from Aaron Haroni, a bald, bearded, slightly built, effortlessly cool fashion mogul dressed in a Brentwood Country Mart sweater, a limited drop he bought off Instagram, and pink Nikes. Later, this man will hand me a sack of the dankest weed I've ever encountered in my 20-year history with the substance. The bag left my car skunky for a week. I told you, this is just the essence of California distilled into a think piece. Haroni is the owner of Cannabiotics and one of the two main co-stars in the reality show that Pratt, wearing a gray and brown tie-dye t-shirt, charcoal jeans, and 8 crystal necklaces worth a combined $10,000, hopes to sell. Pratt peppers Haroni with questions about his booming weed business. Cannabiotics earned $36 million in revenue last year and is expanding rapidly. The company just purchased a large plot of real estate across the street, and Pratt films the company co-owners walking the premises, talking about their plan to build a new production facility on the site. Fucking nailed it, Pratt tells Haroni at the conclusion of the interview. Later, Pratt tries to coax answers out of Madeline Taylor, Cannabiotics' beautiful but painfully shy vice president of operations. You're doing it, Pratt encourages her. You're doing great. Just say you're nervous. Say it all. He imagines a show that is equally about the brand's rise to the top of the cannabis industry as it is about the relationship between Haroni and his partner Nima Samari, one of the most decorated marijuana horticulturists in the world. If that doesn't sound like much of a story arc, then remember the key to a hit reality TV show is not the plot, but the personalities. This is Aaron Haroni.
I've got bad news for you. You're Jewish.
Whatever you think of Pratt, whether you consider him a self-promoter of the most shameless ilk, someone willing to debase himself and exploit his personal relationships for fame, or a deft cultural operator on par with Kim Kardashian, as some have argued, Pratt has proven time and again to have an innate understanding of the machinations of celebrity. He invented being a notorious reality TV villain. Instead of avoiding the tabloids, he worked with them to ensure he and his wife Heidi were always in the cultural conversation, a strategy A-list celebrities would later emulate. All of the salacious tabloid covers were fabricated with the Pratt's help, he says. He cultivated a massive following on Snapchat long before the app started helping creators monetize their presence on the platform. Now the audience is so much smarter. They get it. They understand it's about money, Pratt tells me on the drive back from the shoot. There's a meme that I love. Modern audiences say they understood the assignment. Who does this sound like? Who does this sound like? Being a notorious reality TV villain, working with the tabloids to ensure that he and his family are always in the cultural conversation. Pratt has always understood the assignment. The people just want a good show, and it's the celebrity's job to give it to them. The problem with always being ahead of your time, though, is that you're never successful in the moment. Your ideas can only be appreciated in retrospect after they've been co-opted by those who came in your wake. Pratt craves respect for how he's mastered that game, sometimes it seems, even more than he does fame itself. He is a true student of the game, a true ball knower. No matter how successful I was, I always felt like people were always talking down to me and treating me like I was a little kid, Pratt says. And now I'm about to be 40 and I still feel that energy sometimes. And he is extremely, extremely millennial. There's a parallel universe in which Pratt is unknown outside of the insular world of Hollywood production circles. When Pratt was 20 years old, he grabbed a camcorder and filmed a day in the life of his best friend, Brody Jenner. The culture was fascinated by the lives of young people in Southern California. The OC and its reality TV counterpart, Laguna Beach, were met with frenzied fandom, and Pratt, ever the opportunist, sought to capitalize with a show of his own. I said, I'll let you film me if you show up at 8 a.m. on the dot. And he did, Jenner remembers. The only reason I'm on reality television is because of Spencer. He is Mr. Hustle. Pratt's homemade video piqued the interest of executives at Fox, but on the day of his introductory meeting, a producer stole his drive-on pass to the studio and assumed Pratt's role as the show's primary producer. Pratt still received an executive producer credit, but by the time he arrived at the meeting, it had already been decided that he would not be the creative vision behind the project. Princes of Malibu had a 6-episode run on Fox before its cancellation. This is the author of the piece here on the right. Had Pratt made that meeting on time, he likely would have been one of the youngest lead producers in all of Hollywood. And in this alternate reality, Pratt goes on to become the brains behind multiple reality TV franchises that help define millennial culture. He's a reality TV kingmaker who is less famous, but wealthier and more respected by his peers than he is now. But that's not what happened, of course. Instead of pursuing more projects as a producer, Pratt decided to jump in front of the camera for a Laguna Beach spinoff called The Hills. A decision that irrevocably altered the trajectory of his life for better and worse. He became a household name, a millionaire, and one of the most reviled men in America. The Hills was ostensibly about the illustrious lives of a group of early 20s friends trying to make their way personally and professionally in Los Angeles. A show glamorizing the lives of self-important, ultra-privileged white yuppies whose biggest problems are petty interpersonal dramas seems vapid, if not a bit distasteful in retrospect. I mean, yeah, but also there's no, you can think what you like about it, but it's undeniable the cultural imprint that it had. And it didn't really exist before. It was its own thing, distinct to a particular generation, and it had an indelible imprint on that generation, even to those who weren't aware of the show, didn't follow it. It was the copycats that it produced and the culture that it set has proliferated out throughout the rest of the generation. Pratt was introduced in season 2 as the boyfriend of Heidi Montag, one of the show's original stars, and immediately displayed a preternatural talent for stirring shit up. Spencer actually told me from the beginning that he wanted to be the most hated person on the planet, says Jenner, who also regularly appeared on The Hills. And he did it. He really is a master of manifestation. If being hated was the goal, then Pratt was wildly successful. In 2011, a year after The Hills ended, he was named the second most hated celebrity in America, according to an annual market research poll. He was more hated than O.J. Simpson, a perennial honoree on the list. The only person above him on the list was Casey Anthony, a woman many believe killed her own daughter. She was acquitted. Knowing that, Pratt's run on The Hills can be considered performance art on par with Andy Kaufman, the 1970s anti-comic who more or less invented the art of shitposting, although Kaufman's shtick was as a stage performer. Kaufman was so committed to his unique brand of anti-comedy that when he died of cancer in 1984, many thought he staged his death as a bit. Pratt was notorious for blowing up at his fellow castmates, berating them in public at bars and clubs, and in private at parties and during serious sit-down conversations in their homes. He called his younger sister a crazy bitch at a barbecue. He kicked Montag out of his car and drove away, stranding her in a parking lot. He got so angry with Jenner one night at a club that you could see veins protruding from his forehead. He was angry and volatile and petty and liable to explode at any given moment, and it made for undeniably gripping television. It was all calculated, Pratt says. Before the show began, David Foster, Jenner's stepfather and 16-time Grammy winner, told Pratt that people hated Simon Cowell because Cowell was the only American Idol judge willing to speak the unvarnished truth. They hated him because he told the truth. Pratt took the advice to heart, calling people out to their faces. Most of his worst moments, meanwhile, were entirely staged. People thought I was a monster for leaving Heidi in a shady alley. We shot that scene 14 times. How many times? We shot that scene 14 times from every angle you could think of. When Pratt gave a heartfelt apology to Lauren Conrad over the phone, he was actually talking to a producer. Pratt and his sister did have a real-life falling out, though, and their relationship remained strained. Pratt's offenses are downright quaint by contemporary standards. Numerous famous men have had their careers ended and reputations permanently marred over the past several years due to revelations about their years of bullying, harassing, and abusive behavior, sexual and otherwise. Several Real Housewives stars have been convicted of white-collar crimes. All Pratt ever did was act like a dick on television. What I was hated for wouldn't even make it onto a show these days, Pratt says. These people are literally catching felony charges for embezzlement. For all his skill courting fame on screen, Pratt avoided the industry glad-handing vital to a long-term career in Hollywood. While the rest of his Hills co-stars worked the Hollywood scene, attending industry parties, lunching with studio execs, setting themselves up for life after reality TV, Pratt and Montag, who had since married and taken on the moniker Spidey, mostly kept to themselves. Heidi and I, we were just always on our own, he says. We had such a level of fame I had never imagined needing to meet other people. I don't even need to meet people anymore. I'm so famous. I'm supposed to be Kim Kardashian, Pratt says. Watch all the early episodes of Kardashians. They copied everything Heidi and I did on the Hills. The only difference between us and the Kardashians, I've learned, is you're only as famous as the media conglomerate bankrolling you. Very interesting. I didn't understand that once Viacom wasn't in the Heidi and Spencer business, it was a wrap on the visions I had for us and our success. Comcast didn't unplug the Kardashians until last year. For what it's worth, pop culture publication The Ringer agrees with Pratt's self-assessment. Earlier this year, Ringer Dish, the publication's celeb-focused podcast, released an episode titled Spencer Pratt Walked So That Kim Kardashian Could Run. Pratt and Montag moved to Costa Rica after the Hills ended, and aside from the occasional reality show guest appearance, they mostly avoided fame. I thought I was done, Pratt says. Our life back home was tumultuous, and we had an opportunity to take a break in paradise and jumped on it. All I did was read books and look at dolphins every day, which was a miracle. Pratt and Montag fell in love with Costa Rica while filming I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, a reality TV miniseries the couple quit after 2 days because they were too rich and famous to spend time in the jungle, but not before Pratt got baptized by Stephen Baldwin. The couple later moved to Santa Barbara, and a curious thing started to happen. Pratt's image Pratt's image began to soften. Pratt started posting videos to his Snapchat of him enjoying the outdoors, espousing the healing powers of crystals, indulging in Mexican food, his favorite cuisine, and feeding hummingbirds out of the palm of his hand like he was a goddamn Disney princess. His most popular snaps generated 5 million views apiece, he says. If you would have told my 2006 self that I would one day idolize Spencer Pratt, I would have never believed you, says Annabelle DeSisto, host of Adderall and Compliments, a podcast that covers reality TV. Like so many millennial women, DeSisto grew up despising the star. She was appalled at his brazen rudeness and the way he spoke to women, including his girlfriend. That changed once she discovered Pratt's Snapchat account. I thought, this cannot be the monster I knew from before. Pratt later appeared on Adderall and Compliments. DeSisto even held his and Montag's baby son, Gunnar, when she visited their home. What a story. Like, looking at both the parallels to Trump and then watching the arc that he's gone through in his own character and then the way it's beginning to emerge, if he is actually, it's possible that he ends up losing the election and then he just kind of disappears and, a year from now we're barely even talking about him. But this arc that's beginning now is, I'm just sort of like stepping back and looking at the potential trajectory and seeing the way all of his different experiences and his personality traits and the sort of the anti-fragility that he's cultivated and being inside the system but outside the system.
Welcome to the Gulag. If you survive, you earn your freedom.
Thank you for subscribing, Dr. Doom Guy. Just what a fascinating character. Pratt completely changed reality TV, DeSisto says. There wasn't a villain on The Osbournes in Simple Life. He set the bar on what a male reality show villain should be. He completely made that his own, and everyone has copied that since then. He's so smart, and I don't think people give him the credit he deserves. Through Pratt, you can trace the evolution of celebrity over the past 20 years. From reality TV stardom to the 2000s tabloid boom to the contemporary content economy. Pratt now finds himself in a media landscape where it's unclear if celebrity, at least in the traditional definition, exists at all. Movie stars have lost their ability to draw people into theaters, and there are more TV shows than any one person could ever reasonably watch. Instead of a few widely known celebrities, we have a litany of micro-celebrities who are unknown outside of their small but loyal followings. Anyone can be famous in the content economy, but doing so requires creating incessantly and living with the fear that you're always one algorithm change from having your business model upended. Oh, I feel that one. This is something I've talked about before, that the greatest thing about the internet is it gives anyone a voice, and the worst thing about the internet is it gives anyone a voice. You can see this is a pattern that you can see elsewhere in life and in reality, where like it's easier now to be, so like celebrity has been decentralized, so there's been a flattening that's happened, but it's also raised the floor. So like there's this kind of paradoxical centralization and decentralization that has happened in concert with each other. Pratt is acutely aware of what he's up against. This new generation of influencers, they're coming like pro athletes at this fame thing, Pratt says. He's especially impressed with TikToker Tinks, who's amassed millions of followers and is known for writing long missives in her Instagram story updates. She writes essays in each story. It's incredible. She writes more in her story than I wrote during my entire time at USC. Social media was supposed to be videos of, look at what I'm doing, fun lifestyle content. I'm kind of tripped out. Where do I fit in now? It's telling, though, that for all their followers online, the best most influencers can think to do is get into reality TV. Charlie and Dixie D'Amelio, two of the biggest TikTok stars on the planet, and the members of Hype House, a Beverly Hills mansion filled with influencers, a kind of real world for the Zoomer generation, have created reality shows with Hulu and Netflix respectively. That both shows are considered middling successes is just more proof that having millions of followers online... Doom Guy!
Fashizzle.
Fashizzle my nizzle. Thank you, Dr. Doom Guy.
Yes, hello, it's me, a black guy.
That both shows are considered middling successes is just more proof that having millions of followers online doesn't confer nearly the star power of being on a hit show. Pratt knows this. His social media following powers his thriving crystals business. But if he's ever to get past the hills, it has to happen in the medium that originally made him a household name. Hence, the cameras. His thriving crystals business. He's been preparing. He's been preparing for his role in crushing and destroying the libs at the behest of his great emperor, Donald Trump. He's been preparing for this for a long time. Hold on, I got to get my content, Pratt says. He puts his iPhone 13 Pro Max on selfie mode and films himself twirling around in the midday Los Angeles sun while holding up an Erewhon breakfast burrito, a video he will later post to both his Snapchat and Instagram accounts. Pratt and I sit on lawn chairs in a grassy expense in Palisades Village, a high-end shopping complex in the Palisades, the Tony Enclave tucked up in the Santa Monica Mountains in northwest Los Angeles. It's where Pratt grew up and where he, Montag, and their 4-year-old son, Gunnar, live now. I like this description. I can smell it. I can feel it. I'm basically there reading it. Pratt is bigger, stronger, more stout than he was on the hills. He got into CrossFit and powerlifting several years ago and bulked up, though nowadays he's an acolyte of Ben, knees over toes guy Patrick, What the hell? When I first was reading through this, I completely forgot about this. When I was first reading through this, the last thing I expected was a reference to the knees over toes guy. The fitness guru who has become an internet sensation because of his unorthodox knee rehabilitation exercises. So we've got Spencer Pratt here is concerned with his mobility and his mechanical chain. We discuss Pratt's plans for the future. He has a litany of creative projects in various stages of development. He's pitching the reality show about cannabiotics. Working title is High Rollers. Clever. And is shooting a Judge Judy-style show called Judge Me, where Pratt provides guidance and redemption for people who have embarrassed themselves. He's in talks with Patreon, a content subscription platform, about a video series, and is discussing an animated series for Hulu. He wants to make a dark indie comedy about the life of his friend Shrek, a former Delta Force operator and the godfather of his son. So his son's godfather is a former Delta Force guy. The way Pratt sees it, all he needs is to create one successful reality TV format, and then he can replicate it ad nauseum, like the countless iterations of Real Housewives, and collect untold amounts of passive income for the rest of his life. If, God willing, this became some big cult hit, people would be like, who cares if he was ever on TV? The rage that made Pratt infamous has been replaced by a good-natured boyishness. He's still a fiery, passionate guy. He often speaks in clipped fragments, starting his next sentences before he's finished the first, very Trumpian, as if his words can't keep up with his racing thoughts. But the anger seems to have subsided. Talking with him over breakfast burritos, he's calmer, gentler, at times even a little zen. It's that he's gone through his ascetic discipline, cultivating his crystals, preparing for his great conquest, and he's settled into his mission, his calling. Winding through the Palisades in his black BMW M5 competition, Pratt answers a call from Montag. Did you drop it off, she asks. One of Pratt's chores this afternoon is dropping off lunch for their son Gunnar. We did, Pratt replies. The school director looked at me like I was from another planet, dropping off Erewhon smoothies and warm slices of pizza for Gunnar's lunchbox. Gunnar eats better than just about every kid in America. Montag is calling from set, shooting a PSA about the scourge of single-use plastics. Heidi and I were saying how funny it is that she's doing the commercial because she's all plastic, Pratt says. Montag got extensive plastic surgery while in the hills long before the Kardashians normalized the practice. Yet another example of the Pratt's celebrity clairvoyance. The liberals have no answer for this. They have no idea what's coming for them. This needs to be made into a "we are going to fucking kill you" meme right here. His most lucrative venture at the moment is selling crystals. After picking up Gunnar from school, Pratt drives us to Pratt Daddy, the crystal shop he owns at a separate Palisades shopping center. There, one of his female employees, clad in a baggy pink and purple tie-dye sweatsuit, is selling crystals on a live stream. In a good month, the crystal shop will move more than $300,000 in merchandise. Perhaps the most surprising thing about Pratt, though, is that he and Montag have stayed together and built a family. Spencer and Heidi, they were the ones everyone thought weren't going to make it, Jenner says. Who can blame the doubters? A relationship seemingly predicated on fighting for the amusement of a leering public didn't seem a healthy one, but they've been together for more than 15 years now and are trying to get pregnant with their second child. They proved everybody wrong, Jenner adds. Pratt is also a doting, loving father, offering his son nothing but positive reinforcement during our time together. Even as, or especially as, rather, his son flashes some of Pratt's signature rambunctiousness. Midway through the live stream, Gunnar switches off the power strip, turning off the ring light Pratt's employee was using. Pratt and his son laugh at the prank, and Pratt turns on a dinosaur video to distract the boy for the remainder of the live stream. He's literally me. I ask Pratt why he doesn't just settle into life as a small business owner and family man, enjoying his beautiful wife and vibrant son and the life they've built together in one of the most coveted neighborhoods in the country. Jeez, there's a foreshadowing. It's not a celebrity existence per se, but it's a life to which many could only ever aspire. Pratt seems grateful for what he has, but he also understands that when your business is predicated on celebrity, maintaining that celebrity is paramount. It's not zero sum. I can be on a reality show and still enjoy my family, Pratt tells me in a Notes app message. But let's not forget how powerful television is. Why are the Kardashians still on TV? They're billionaires. It's because they know that being on camera is going to move product. How will people know about the crystals if they don't know we exist? That was from 2022. Utterly fascinating to draw a line now from that to today. So let's talk a little bit more about his actual persuasion technique, why he's hitting home for people. This is from American Debunk. I've read a couple of his articles now, influenced by Scott Adams-esque analysis here. He says, here I break down the Spencer Pratt phenomenon and show you why and how he's created national buzz. He's angry, authentic, and is hitting all the senses when he talks. But the most effective thing he's doing is simply describing what everyone else sees. The Spencer Pratt phenomenon. I will go below the Harbor Freeway tomorrow with her, and she can find some of these people she's going to offer treatment for. She's going to get stabbed in the neck. Imagine a city that charges you for water and then lets the fire hydrants run dry when you need them most, by choice. A decade of choices made by the same class of people, re-elected by the same coalition, funded by the same donors, producing the same results. The city takes your tax money every year, the kind of money that should make you feel protected. And when the sky turns orange and the hills catch fire and the smoke rolls into your neighborhood, you find out the social contract you paid into is not a contract at all. It was a performance. Or worse, a robbery. This is not a hypothetical. This is what happened in the Palisades in January of 2025. The hydrants were dry and the water pressure collapsed. Hundreds of millions of dollars in property burned because the city that collected taxes on that property had spent the money on other things, and rather than the systems that were supposed to protect it. One of the people who lost his home that night was Spencer Pratt. He had stayed. He made the calculation that any reasonable person would make. He had paid enormous property taxes, the kind that come with owning in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the world, and he believed the city would honor its end of the arrangement. He believed the fire trucks would come and the hydrants would have water, because why wouldn't they? He was wrong on both accounts, and his house burned, and what happened next is the part nobody in mainstream politics can adequately explain. Spencer Pratt decided to run for mayor of Los Angeles. To understand why this is a phenomenon, you have to understand who Spencer Pratt was before the fire. He was not a political figure. He was not a businessman with decades of deal-making and brand building behind him. He kind of was, but he was not even especially well known outside of a specific cultural window. Donald Trump came to politics with 40 years of celebrity, a global real estate empire, the most watched show on NBC, and a name that every American over the age of 8 could recognize. When Trump entered the race in 2015, you knew exactly who had entered. You just weren't prepared for his skill set, as it was something nobody has ever seen before. Spencer Pratt was the villain on a reality show called The Hills. He was edited into a cartoon antagonist for 16 seasons, and he played along. The cultural memory of him, for the narrow slice of America that has any cultural memory of him at all, is somewhere between a punchline and a footnote. Anyone under 30 and over 50 probably doesn't know who he is. I'd say probably under 40 or under 35, in that vicinity. Most people in politics definitely don't. And yet he's making noise. There is a buzz across the nation. The polls are moving, the crowds are real, the clips are going viral. Something is happening in Los Angeles that defies the normal logic of how political momentum works, and it's worth understanding. It cannot be explained by the conventional frameworks. I've already played these videos on the show, and I'm sure you guys have seen them already, so I'm just going to keep skipping them. Pratt's story is not actually his story. That's the first thing you need to understand. His burned house, the dry hydrants on his street, his moment of reckoning in the smoke, those are the specific details of one man's experience. But they trace the outline of a story that millions of Americans recognize as their own. This is your story. The details might be different, but the shape of the story is not. You do everything you're supposed to do. You pay your taxes, follow the rules, you trust the institutions. Used to, right? You vote for the people who tell you they will handle it, and you think they're handling it. But then the following surrounds you every day. The encampments that weren't there 10 years ago, the playgrounds your kids can no longer walk to safely, the open drug use on streets where families used to shop, the billions spent on homelessness programs that produce more homelessness, the medieval diseases, as Pratt calls it, making a comeback in a city with a GDP larger than most countries. You did not create any of this, you paid to prevent it. And it happened anyway, and the people responsible are still on the ballot and are getting rich. Spencer Pratt is running against those people. And what he is doing, which is simple enough that you might miss how rare it actually is describing what you can already see. The contest for Los Angeles mayor in 2026 is not at its core a contest between political platforms. It's a contest between two relationships with observable reality. The incumbent political class and the candidate it produced deny what every resident of Los Angeles experiences every single day. They use the language of complexity and nuance and systemic factors and ongoing challenges and the work that remains to be done. They explain why the things you see are not quite what they appear, why the policies that produce the results you are living with were nevertheless the right policies, why the people asking harder questions are not asking them in good faith. They gaslight with remarkable discipline and remarkable calm. The Democrat Party has been trying to invalidate your lived experience for years. That's what we're watching unfold in LA. The most liberal people in America are realizing they are in an abusive relationship and they want out. Pratt does the opposite of invalidating. All he is doing is explaining what every person in LA is experiencing firsthand. He is describing reality. Pratt is constantly reminding LA that the city was once great, but they took that from you. You can have it all back. All you have to do is vote for him. Pratt is giving Angelenos a diagnostic. And the reason it lands so hard, not just in Los Angeles, but across a country watching this California experiment from a distance, is that gaslighting only works until someone steps up and calls it what it is. The moment someone walks into the room and describes what everyone else can already see, the spell breaks. The relief is enormous. There are thousands of LA residents who became so accustomed to the decayed life of LA that they became desensitized and immune to how bad LA truly became. It's like your dirty room. It got like that over time, slowly but surely. You're blind to how dirty it becomes until someone walks in and points to a moldy sandwich on the floor in the corner. Wake-up call. This is why Pratt's message is resonating far beyond Los Angeles. Every major American city has its own version of this same story. Under progressive leadership that promised compassion and progress, visible disorder, crime, and squalor have worsened dramatically. Meanwhile, residents were gaslit and told their own eyes were lying. Pratt isn't simply running for mayor of LA, it's more than that. He's positioning himself as a national template, a blunt, results-focused rejection of failed ideology in favor of basic law, order, and sanity. He's simply describing what everyone is seeing. In a country exhausted by declining cities and elite denial, his campaign is becoming a blueprint for how to fight back and win. Remember, this is the first time someone other than Trump has done this at this scale. He is also, it must be said, very good at this. Pratt has been on camera for 20 years, but watch him more carefully, because what he is doing is more specific than presence and delivery. Let me show you. Speaking Democrat. Politicians, particularly male politicians, often default to logic and authority language. I think we need to. I think the right approach is. I think the data shows. Pratt speaks kinesthetically, i.e. feeling. I want you to feel safe again. Angelenos feel like they've been abandoned. Women in this city feel like they can't let their children out of sight. This is not some rhetorical tick, but rather a deliberate frequency. He is speaking directly to Democrats, specifically women, in the kinesthetic language their conscious and unconscious minds are wired to process most naturally. You'll notice that Democrats rarely say, I think this policy failed. They say, I feel like we're moving backwards, or this doesn't feel fair. Pratt is matching their internal operating system instead of trying to override it with charts and logic. Pratt is using their own primary sensory channel, and in doing so, he bypasses intellectual defenses and lands emotional permission to reject the status quo. It's subtle, sophisticated persuasion. He's not just criticizing failed leadership, he's making Democrats feel why it's time to walk away. In fact, he's making Democrats feel the common sense. The playground moment went everywhere for a reason. He stood up and said that mothers in Los Angeles cannot even walk their children to the local playground because it isn't safe. That the most basic, ordinary thing a mom does has been taken from them by a government that was supposed to protect them. He's framing this not as a policy argument, rather he's describing Angelino's daily life, spoken back to them with precision, validating them. Tens of thousands of women watched that clip and nodded. About time, they thought. He's describing something they already know. This is so powerful because it cuts through all the noise and speaks directly to the soul of what's been stolen from everyday people. We're going to get the golden age of Los Angeles back. His slogan, "We're going to get the golden age of Los Angeles back," is doing something similar. It's almost like we're going to make Los Angeles golden again. It's not a promise about the future. It's an invocation of loss. Many people would rather not lose something than to get something. But when you've already lost the things you wanted, you just want it back. Everyone who has lived in Los Angeles for more than a decade understands what that phrase is reaching for. The city it used to be before the streets changed, before the vibe shifted, before the thing that made it the most desirable city on earth started corroding. Pratt is forcing them to remember their favorite version of their home and then naming who took it from them. This is Make America Great Again 2.0. It's local, and everyone in LA over 30 years old just thought back to the good old days, and they want those days back. The grace period before the overhaul. And then he talks about the plan. The 3-week grace period, a citywide announcement, visible signage, explicit warning that the rules are about to be enforced, followed by hard, fast, unapologetic enforcement. The CDC called in to address what Pratt labels, correctly and devastatingly, medieval diseases. The tuberculosis, the typhus, the infections spreading through encampments of human waste and discarded needles in one of the wealthiest cities in the Western world. Medieval is such an incredible choice of branding. It positions the current Democratic governing class not as progressive, but as regressive. As people who took a first world city and managed it backward, who produced conditions that belong to the 14th century, not the 21st. It is a visceral and effective indictment of failed leadership in the entire race. I imagine most people think of medieval times as an era of poor hygiene and rampant disease. You see what he's doing here now. There is a larger story here, and it's the one that should be unsettling the political class most. Spencer Pratt is popular in Los Angeles. MAGA is resonating in California. These are not things that were supposed to happen. They are not things the conventional political map accounts for. And they're happening simultaneously is not a coincidence. A revolution is happening, and it's probably because even Democrats are ready for it. The ideology that captured every institution of cultural power in America over the past 30 years, the universities, the media, the nonprofit industrial complex, the entertainment industry, is losing the argument in the places it was supposed to have won it permanently. Wokeism is not a governing force anymore. It's a class of people clinging to power while the public gets ready to dethrone them. Spencer Pratt is not the cause of this, he is the symptom. The cause is decades of governance by people who prioritize ideology over results and are now losing the cities that their ideology was supposed to save. Whether Pratt wins the race is not ultimately the point. The point is that the race is real, the buzz is real, that a man who is best known for reality TV villain arc is giving the establishment a legitimate fight in one of the most reliably progressive cities in America. The point is that millions of people outside California are watching this and recognizing something they know from their own cities, their own towns, their own playgrounds that aren't safe anymore. The golden age of Los Angeles is not coming back because Spencer Pratt says so, but the era of pretending things are fine when they are obviously not, the era of gaslighting on an industrial scale, that era is ending it. Pratt didn't end it. The hydrant that had no water ended it. He just showed up to say so. Spencer Pratt replied, said, "Thank you for this." Okay, what do I have next here? Oh, here's an example. You guys have heard the other videos of him, making all the emotional appeals and speaking in terms of I feel that very kinesthetic language. This is him. American Debunk here says he's so good. Take note of how his default conscious output is I think. So when he's just riffing, when he's just talking, he's saying I think. That's the way he's naturally wired. You'll see him switch to a kinesthetic output to resonate with women and liberals in LA by changing his verbiage to I feel or you feel in certain contexts. This is next level. Also, that hat, is that a campaign hat? Because I may need to acquire myself one of those.
So the list of why the red tape and, what could be done on that level, that's, I actually don't know the power of what the governor could do because he already created such a bad situation that I think the ship sailed with the insurance. I think he should have stepped in a long time ago and made sure all the homeowners could actually have insurance in this community. So, and then, like he's right now demanding, like the letter, like, I don't know, it was 44 billion and then it went down to 35 billion and it lists all these grants. It looks like the fire aid scam, just all these.
Dave Combobulated over on X said Pratt's friend Shrek was on Sean Ryan's show a while back. The guy is an absolute savage. I'll need to look that up. I haven't watched Sean Ryan's show in a while for probably obvious reasons, but I want to see that.
NGOs, if you want to demand $40 billion to the federal government to rebuild for victims, that list needs to literally have all the names of the underinsured, the people dropped, what they need to get their houses back. If you want that money from the feds, you give it directly to the fire victims.
3 predictions that have come perfectly true.
On that grant, NGO, therapy, and God knows what the list was like a scary comedy movie. And it was the exact fire aid scam. And then when you look into fire aid, even the lawyers that were hired to defend fire aid, in their defense little paper, they say several of these NGOs gave direct to the fire victims. I asked Google, ChatGPT Pro, Gronk, Premium, whatever. I asked everyone, what's the definition of several? There was.
I'm imagining going up to Rob Gronkowski and asking him, what's the definition of several? And Gronk giving him like, it'd be one of two responses. Either Gronk would just give him like a blank look and be like, what are you talking about? Or he would be like totally jazzed and immediately give like a really excited answer. It would only be one of those two.
Wasn't one AI Google search engine that gave me more than 10. So on a list of, I want to say 200 and maybe 250 NGOs that took the 100 million that people gave to help the fire victims, the own law firm to defend fire aid said several went directly to the fire victims. So that is the problem that then expands across California with the homelessness and the issues, the money that people actually want, whether you're a taxpayer, you're just a nice charitable person that wants to help a homeless person, help a fire victim. It doesn't go to where it's supposed to. It goes to salaries. It goes to bonuses. It goes to friends. It goes to dinner. God knows what it goes to, but it does not go to the people who need it. And that's my concern when people are like, this is Spencer. People come to me. It's like, you got to get the feds to give the money. It's like, I've been fighting fire aid for a year. That's $100 million. You think I want to fight the federal government to give Newsom $35 billion to help fire victims? No. We need a special board of all parties involved, whether Democrats, Republicans, I don't care who you are, but everyone needs to be involved. And it needs to really look at the victims and how to get funds directly to them rebuild.
Okay, the hat. Shout out to Well Below Average. Here's the hat. Let It Burn Gavin Newsom hat. Oh, it looks like it's one of the, is that trucker style with like kind of the puffy part up top here? I will include the link in the on the Substack of the podcast version later on if you want the I guess I haven't said that in a while. For those who don't know, I post the episode up on Substack and I include all the tabs that I go through. A list of all of them there. So I'll include this here if you guys want to go get access to the hat and buy it. Support our boy Spencer. So you can hear like he can code switch really well between the kinesthetic language and then he has a really good grasp of the facts, and he'll sit there and he'll rattle through. Like, you can tell he's been down and dirty in all of this, because when I first like in that last article, when I started reading it, and he's like, I just really want to fucking show, you know, I wonder to myself, is that what this is? Is this him using this as an outlet? Like, here's my opportunity to capitalize on this moment and just cynically, maximize it for the sake of my own celebrity. And I don't think that that's not possible. I also think that 4 years is a long time, and he has 4 years of being a dad, and this is something that's really directly personally affected him. Those are the sorts of things that can be really radicalizing and sobering to someone. And so then you take your skill set there, and you take that passion, that drive, and you channel it into this new sort of calling. Even if that was not the case, though, even if this is just basically a cynical ploy, essentially, where he's just making his new reality show be him running for mayor. Even then, what it's telling you is what the structural incentives are. I've said for a long time that the most shameless, like, ambulance chasing influencers are the ones who are totally up for sale. They're actually good weather vanes to keep track of, to pay attention to, because they're the ones who have the nose for playing the game for its own sake. They're not being driven by some higher principle. They're just being driven by successfully playing the game. So they're the ones who are going to most naturally sniff out that track. They're kind of like the bloodhounds for the grifters are sort of like the narrative bloodhounds. They're the ones who find the narrative and figure out how to juice it. So they do play a valuable role, and then you can have the phenomenon where a person like this can start into something like this relatively cynically, and then as time goes on, they get, you could write a movie script about this with a guy there's been movies and TV shows and stuff that have used this character archetype of the guy who starts off as just just cynical. He's just doing it for his own gain, but then he gets more and more bought in, and like the more personal it becomes, the more motivated and sincerely engaged in it he becomes. So we'll see what happens with him. Speaking of elected officials in the LA area, a California mayor has resigned after being charged with acting as an illegal agent of China. She has agreed to, this is Eileen Wang. She has agreed to plead guilty as she faces up to 10 years in prison, according to federal prosecutors. They say she secretly worked to advance pro-Beijing messaging in the U.S., allegedly spreading propaganda tied to the Chinese government. Now, this is the photo of her here. This is her current photo. This being a spy doesn't pay real well, huh? So, Fox News says federal prosecutors say Eileen Wang didn't become an agent for the Chinese government when she was sworn in as mayor in California. They say her alleged ties to the PRC go back years. From late 20 to 2022, she admitted to working at the direction and control of People's Republic of China officials. November 2022, Wang was elected to Arcadia City Council. In 2024, John Chen, later linked to Wang in court documents, was sentenced for acting as an illegal PRC agent. In October of 2025, her ex-fiancé pleaded guilty to acting as a PRC agent. In February 3, 2026, Wang was sworn in as mayor of Arcadia. And in April of 2026, she was charged with acting as an illegal PRC agent. So this was like, it was not just her. This was a cell. This is a spy cell of Chinese agents working their way into official government positions. Well Below Average says, think she's the only one? Yeah, for sure not. For sure not. Now, this is another one of these kind of subplots here, and maybe it's the main plot. It's sort of let me say this real quick. You're talking about the illegal aliens coming in and getting free houses and stuff, and like on a certain level, I don't hold it against them personally directly, because, like, they're being paid to come into this country and flee whatever shithole they're from, and they're having the red carpet laid out for them to come into this country and have all of their needs provided for them, and they get to live and partake in the great land. If I was in their shoes, I can't guarantee that I wouldn't take advantage of the same thing. So I don't necessarily, my hostility isn't directed toward them. My hostility is toward the ones who refuse to leave, who act as if they're entitled to be here. But really, it's the people who brought them here, the people who created this, who facilitated this, that entire industry. Wall, every one of them, lined up against a wall. So in a similar sense, I am... go to jail. Like, lock her up, throw away the key. But I don't necessarily have like direct hostility to her. To me, it signals, okay, like obviously there's this penetration that's happening, and these are tied together. Who knows if she was actually here legally or not? But another layer to this is that China is not a monolith, and there's major power struggles happening within the power structures in China right now. So I'm very curious to know if it's just sort of coincidental that this is happening. This is just when the case worked its way through, and it just happens to drop now, and it just so happens to be at the same time that Trump is in China, or if there's a connection here. But I can see these threads beginning to weave together. The deal that Trump and Xi have been working on for a while, and then them going and meeting together now means that the vast majority of the stuff has already been negotiated and agreed to, and they're like putting the finishing touches on it and officially formalizing all of it, and they're going through the diplomatic process to make it a big event versus just like we had a phone call and we agreed on some stuff and we send a tweet. But we've got this insurgency that's happening where suddenly MAGA is being made palatable to Californians. We've got this sort of anti-fragile persuasion master who is serving as a vessel for that energy. Also, Democrats are struggling with some horrendous candidate quality in the governor's race, and there's two very credible Republicans who are in the race as well, and they've got their own issues. But I think Chad Bianco is the former sheriff of Riverside. He'd be better, definitely. He's still a little bit of a boomer con. Steve Hilton is the guy who Trump has endorsed, and he's actually a Brit, and is kind of a suit. But either way, there is something substantial to having a guy there with an R next to his name that substantially changes things in terms of the penetration of different party apparatuses, coordination between the administration, expectations of comportment and decorum, and like an expectation of being on the same page. Having a Republican governor of California who's like publicly fighting with the administration, there's lots of reasons why there's structural incentives away from something like that occurring. So simply getting just a guy with an R next to his name is going from 0 to 1. Let's just go from 0 to 1, and then you can put a lot more political pressure on that guy than you would just yet another Democrat. And it would be a massive, like, just a huge kick in the face to the whole Democrat power structure there that's already reeling. And then you have the California economy and their oil production capacity that's been intentionally hamstrung for a long time. And I'm positive that there's major Chinese influence on that. So just getting, like, if this Trump-Xi summit, if like the only thing that came out of that was essentially being able to turn the tide in California and take back California from the crime syndicates that have governed it for the last few decades, that alone would be just an immense coup. A little bit more on this woman, ex-mayor Eileen Wang. Her arrest is the beginning. 2 of the 3 people listed as directors for her defunct logistics company are Chinese spies. The third is a director for TP-Link, which is banned in the US. TP-Link routers are used in our voting systems. Are you paying attention yet? Josh Steinman. Wow, really? Wow, no, I didn't know that. You're telling me that for the first time. How many of them are there? So, this is the first announcement before I went live. Who knows what's happened since then? But this is the first major announcement that we've gotten from China since the entourage headed over there. The White House posted this from the bilateral meeting in Beijing. President Trump had a good meeting with President Xi of China. It's kind of an interesting bit of phrasing there. President Trump had a good meeting with President Xi of China. It's not legendary. It's not extraordinary. It's not groundbreaking. It's not transformative. He had a good meeting. The two sides discussed ways to enhance economic cooperation between our two countries, including expanding market access for American businesses into China and increasing Chinese investment into our industries. Now, this is a very interesting thing here. Increasing Chinese investment into our industries. This is a thorny subject. I strongly recommend go to Contrarian Corner, Ben Kelleran on YouTube. He had a great interview a couple days ago with both members of Gold, Goats, and Guns, Dexter White and Tom Luongo. And they spent a little while talking about this, like what the, given the motivations and incentives and proclivities on both sides here, what sort of arrangement would make sense if you're going to, clearly both sides have a desire to sort of reintegrate and begin normalizing relations with one another. That's well underway. And so then clearly part of that would be cross-investment, getting us mutually bought in to each other's countries. The United States needs to move the slider away from consumption and towards production, and China needs to move the slider from production toward consumption. So do you bring... What incentive do the Chinese have to invest, and in what ways do they invest, and in what industries? Are they going to actually send capital equipment over and manage it here and employ Americans producing goods for Americans? So both sides have. How do you prevent the spying matter? There's all these sorts of things. Interestingly, Trump mentioned this the other day. Someone asked him about Chinese spies in the country, and he was like, "Yeah, they do that. We do that to them as well." Yeah, it just is. So there's a very, very matter of fact approach to it. But there are also Xi is trying to consolidate power in his country as well, and he's got an issue of the need to elevate his own middle class. So they need to drive and incentivize more domestic consumption, producing for their own domestic people and raising their own people's standard of living across the whole country to try to stabilize it, because they're also going to have to navigate through a pretty serious fertility crisis as well. Anyway, so leaders from many of the United States' largest companies joined a portion of the meeting. The president also highlighted the need to build on progress in ending the flow of fentanyl precursors into the U.S., as well as increasing Chinese purchases of American agricultural products. The two sides agreed that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open to support the free flow of energy. President Xi also made clear China's opposition to the militarization of the strait and any effort to charge a toll for its use. And he expressed interest in purchasing more American oil to reduce China's dependence on the strait in the future. Both countries agreed that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. That latter part there, this is the most interesting part of all of this to me here, that China is now effectively agreeing to go on the record that they do not support the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, that they do not support the militarization of the strait, they do not support tolls on the strait, and they're on the record saying that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. So, if the Trump administration's goal has been to drive a diplomatic wedge between China and Iran, that is proceeding apace. So here's a quick summary from Fox News about some more of the details on this. And then I've got some good quotes from Marco Rubio in an interview he did with Hannity. Yeah, we'll get to that after this.
We just got a readout from the White House on this big bilateral meeting between the two presidents. So I'll read a couple of notes that I've taken away from this statement. They talked about expanding.
I wonder if she's the one they sent there because, well, obvious reasons.
Market access for American businesses into China. Remember the
also, if you haven't watched some of these clips of the reception that Trump got there, I've got some here in a minute, but I'd recommend watching this, looking at all the pomp and circumstance in the B-roll.
Expanding market access for American businesses into China. Remember, the president brought this delegation of 16 CEOs from different business and tech backgrounds. They also talked about wanting more progress on stopping the flow of fentanyl. That's something the president brought up. Now, the Chinese purchases of American agricultural products was also something that was brought up in these discussions. And President Xi expressed interest in purchasing more American oil to reduce China's dependence on the strait in the future. That's a really big takeaway. So we're going to focus on that as well.
That there would be a BFD, and I got to give a tip of the cap to Tom Luongo because he called that directly on that conversation with Ben and Dexter. He said that if we're looking at the way all of these decisions have lined up with Venezuela, then Iran, then having this meeting now, it certainly appears as if the goal here is to sort of corner China into agreeing, as this is one of the terms of the arrangement here, is that you are going to begin buying oil from us, decreasing your need for the Strait of Hormuz, deprecating that as a critical choke point. And so then the thoughts here, it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate this because it's potentially very thorny, but obviously the CCP has set up some pretty substantial infrastructure, to put it euphemistically, on the west coast of the United States, the west coast of North America, period. And you got to wonder, to what extent does this become, you're going to buy more U.S. oil, you're going to buy that oil from via California, and you're going to invest in scaling up the infrastructure to absorb that in California. And we're going to essentially say, we've been following you, we know who you are, we're going to flip the Chinese assets that are here and sort of normalize them here, integrate them into the economic footprint. So they're no longer like these subversive embedded spies. They're now actually kind of brought out into the open and held to account, and they're forced to collaborate in this sort of a way. I don't know if that would be doable, and this is me just kind of riffing on it myself, but seeing the pattern of how Trump has dealt with a lot of these things, it's kind of like you are going to invest in our infrastructure and you're going to commit to making purchases from that infrastructure that is produced by that infrastructure that you've invested in.
Also, both countries agree that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And after reading through this readout, there was really nothing in there that said that China was going to help pressure Iran in any way to ending the conflict. We were wondering if that was going to come up. It has been an incredibly busy day for the president, touring around all over Beijing. The president began his day with a visit.
Look at this. You got Marco Rubio, Scott Bessent, Pete Hegseth, Jameson Greer, Stephen Miller. You got the GigaCon over here. You got Eric Trump and Lara Trump. You've got Elon that I recognize here. And I've got the list somewhere else, I think, of all the CEOs that were over there. I know Tim Cook was over there. And I can't remember all the rest of them. But there's one funny video out there. I didn't include it today, but there's one kind of funny video of Xi going along and shaking hands with each one of them. And he kind of pauses and takes an extra moment and maybe even exchanges a couple of words with both Stephen Miller and Stephen Chung, both of our beloved Weird Stevens. I wonder what they said.
Visit to the Great Hall of People at the heart of the city, where he was greeted by President Xi. The delegation heard the national anthem along with a 21-gun salute, and the two leaders then had a bilateral meeting. And the president commented on his relationship with Xi. Watch.
You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president and president has had, and that's to me an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you, and you would call me, and whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked it out very quickly. We're going to have a fantastic future together.
So once the bilateral was over, we actually got several statements from the Chinese side almost immediately. This is a not so thinly veiled warning from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokeswoman on Taiwan, the issue of Taiwan, which, by the way, gets a ton of its defense weapons from the U.S. This is what she wrote. President Xi stressed to President Trump that the Taiwan question is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. If it is handled properly, the bilateral relationship will enjoy overall stability. Now, here's the moment a reporter shouts a question at the two leaders.
So obviously Taiwan is something that's important to them, and I'm pretty sure I have a clip here of Marco Rubio talking about it. But I'm seeing more and more signals that essentially the U.S.'s posture, maybe emerging their posture toward Taiwan, is we're scaling up our own domestic production, our own domestic semiconductor production, and which is going to diminish the value of Taiwan as this like standalone sort of stronghold that we have a strong interest in retaining access to. And so it seems to me as if it's going to be sort of an inevitability that the United States is going to kind of over the next 5 years or so draw back from Taiwan, and Taiwan is going to be absorbed back into China.
Leaders about Taiwan, and watch what happens next.
How were your talks, sir?
It's great.
You can talk about Taiwan.
Great place. Incredible. China's beautiful.
Yeah, neither wanted to say anything about it. Meanwhile,
I like how they highlight that. It's like, oh, we gave like 2 seconds after the question was asked, and they didn't answer within the 2 seconds. So clearly they didn't want to talk about it.
Iran looming in the background as a report overnight indicates that Iran may have taken a vessel near the Strait of Hormuz. While President Trump says he does not need Xi's help in ending the conflict, administration officials did go into this bilat saying that they were hoping to see China play a role, considering that it buys the largest amount of Iranian crude.
We've made the argument to the Chinese, and I hope it's compelling. The Chinese have ships stuck in the Persian Gulf. Because setting up a system that says we're going to let certain ships through but others not, it's easier said than done. It's a huge source of instability. It threatens to destabilize Asia more than any other part of the world. It's in their interest to resolve this. We hope to convince them to play a more active role.
And remember, there were a huge contingency of CEOs that were present at the ceremony today. We saw them leaving the bilateral early, meaning that the president did what he said. He was going to make his first ask to Xi to open up China to these companies. Of course, the guys, they want to do business in China as long.
So the CEOs that were present were the CEOs of Apple, Blackstone, Boeing, Cargill, Citi, GE Aerospace, Goldman Sachs, Visa, Tesla and SpaceX, Qualcomm, Nvidia, Micron, MasterCard, and Illumina.
Long as it's safe to do business in China. The state banquet is up next, and then the first interview with Sean Hannity airs later tonight. We will find out much more directly from the president on what he got out of President Xi today.
Okay, so let's do a little schizo posting real quick. MJ Truth Ultra says, Anons know how significant this is. China rolled out the red carpet for President Trump and significantly honored his arrival. In September 3 of 2016, Obama arrived in Hangzhou and received no red carpet, no celebration, not even a rolling staircase to depart the plane. So here's
US President Barack Obama's arrival in China for the G20 summit got off to a bumpy start as he didn't receive the red carpet treatment usually offered to world leaders. Our O.C. Young has more.
Was it a carefully calculated snub or a simple mishap on the behalf of the Chinese? As President Obama arrived in the eastern Chinese city of Hangzhou on Saturday, no rolling staircase had been prepared for his exit from Air Force One. Instead, he had to make his way out from a little-used exit. There are also altercations between US and Chinese officials as Obama got off the plane and US reporters were told to move. A Chinese official was heard shouting, "This is our country, this is our airport." President Obama later downplayed the situation.
It can cause...
President Barack.
Here's Trump. China no respect chocolate person. Q Drop said, why are China and Russia communist S/closed? Can you find an owl/Y there? I don't know what this means, but was this to prevent evil from entering? Was this to protect their children and people? In other words, did China and Russia close off their economies specifically to prevent some type of outside evil from entering? Why was Barack Obama shamed during his trip to China, SA, and other locations? How was POTUS hosted? Compare, think, Fantasyland. There is your Q post for the day. And then also, when President Ursula von der Leyen went to China last year, the EU delegation was transported by bus and no official welcoming ceremony was held.
International Airport in the early hours of July 24th. Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet with President Costa and President von der Leyen, while Chinese Premier Li Qiang will co-chair the 25th China-EU summit with the two EU leaders. The summit takes place as China and the EU mark the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations.
Literally pulled her up in a shuttle from the airport. Hastily laid down red carpet. Now, I don't like some people I think have read into the very grand, all the ceremonies and festivities as like this is China laying down. And I don't think that's the proper read from it. This is more like China really wants something out of Trump. And this is in the same sense when Trump is super, super complimentary to them. He knows how to play the game. They know how to play the game. This is like actual statecraft that's happening here. So they're going to do this big formal thing. It's like an honor of their nation to receive an honored leader this way. So their own customs obligate them to recognize his eminence, his greatness. They also obligate them to not recognize the chocolate person's eminence, lack of eminence, and lack of greatness, or the obnoxious Euro hag. They don't like them. So here's a great post from Sightbringer. We haven't had one of the clanker bangers here in a little while. But he says, talking about taking all the CEOs on the flight. So Elon and Jensen from NVIDIA both flew on Air Force One, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like that level of net worth on one airplane. In one, and they were ultimately all together in one place. Trust Planstar says Brent Johnson said that those CEOs represented more value than the entire Chinese stock market. Yeah, I mean that's bringing all of those CEOs along with him, like having the whole crew backing you up with Trump. This is a major diplomatic big dicking. It's like this is what you need access to. We know that you need access to this, and we're now going to hold it over you. Camo Aquaticus said China has invested a lot of time and money in buying off California Democrats. If Trump has Xi by the balls, part of the deal could be the effective surrender of Cali Dems. Yeah, that was, you said in a sentence, essentially kind of what I was kind of trying to drive at. So Sightbringer says this is Trump attempting to subordinate globalization to presidential deal power. The old, excuse me. The old China relationship was run through trade bureaucrats, corporate supply chains, WTO assumptions, Wall Street incentives, and quiet CEO diplomacy. Trump is pulling that entire structure into the open and placing himself above it. That's why the CEO list matters. NVIDIA, Apple, Tesla, BlackRock, Boeing, Cargill, Citi, Goldman, Micron, and Qualcomm. That is America's capital stack, compute stack, consumer tech stack, aerospace stack, food stack, and financial stack sitting behind the president as negotiating leverage. The message to Xi is blunt. China still needs access to American corporate magic, American capital, American chips, American brands, American aircraft, American finance, and American legitimacy. Access now runs through the White House. This is controlled re-engagement under coercion. China is weaker than the old consensus admitted. Demographics, property deflation, weak consumer confidence, capital distrust, youth unemployment pressure, export dependence, and tech choke points have changed the bargaining table. Trump appears to understand that Beijing does not want full decoupling. It wants selective access without surrendering control. So he is trying to force the contradiction. Open enough for American companies or keep absorbing pressure. The Jensen NVIDIA piece is the crown jewel. NVIDIA represents the core choke point of the age, compute. If Jensen is physically on Air Force One, the trip is not just trade theater, it's AI statecraft. China wants compute access, America wants leverage, NVIDIA wants markets. National security hawks want control, Trump wants to be the gatekeeper between all of them. That is the live tension. The upside. This could produce a real short-term détente. China may offer purchases, approvals, market access gestures, regulatory openings, FSD movement for Tesla, aircraft orders, agriculture commitments, payments or finance access, or symbolic concessions. Markets would like that because it lowers immediate confrontation risk and supports the deal maker stabilizes the system narrative. The downside. Beijing is expert at managed openness. It can offer enough access to split U.S. corporate interests from U.S. strategic interests. CEOs want revenue. China wants leverage over those CEOs. Trump wants the deal. That creates risk of a bargain that looks like victory while quietly softening the technology containment regime. The deep structure is this. Trump is not abandoning rivalry with China. He's trying to convert rivalry into tribute. Tariffs created pain. China's weakness created need. U.S. national champions created leverage. Now the White House is trying to turn that leverage into visible concessions, business wins, and political theater. Same strategic rivalry, new phase. The active phase has shifted from blunt confrontation to coercive corporate state bargaining. The likely outcome. China gives enough to let Trump declare a major opening, CEOs get selective wins, markets rally on reduced tension, and the deeper U.S.-China struggle continues underneath the deal language. The real question is whether Trump extracts structural concessions or just a spectacular access package. If he gets structural opening, this is a dominance event. If he gets purchases and approvals, this is tactical détente. Either way, the signal is huge. Corporate globalization is no longer running above the state. The state is dragging corporate globalization back under political command. What do you call that? What do you call that when corporate globalization is dragged under political command by the state? Is there a word for that?
Waiter, more fascism, please.
Speaking of fascism, look at my Secretary of State's drip, posted by the Gigacon. Secretary Rubio rocking the Nike Tech Venezuela on Air Force One. That's I gotta admit, that drip's pretty hard. Of course, he's got the Adidas kicks down here, which is kind of funny. But so I've got some clips here now from Otto von Bismarck talking to Sean Hannity here on a number of things, China, Iran, etc. So let's run through these real quick.
Yeah, it's both our top political challenge geopolitically, and it's also the most important relationship for us to manage. I mean, it's a big, powerful country. It's going to continue to grow, but we're going to have interests of ours that are going to be in conflict with interests of theirs. And to avoid wars and maintain peace and stability in the world, we're going to have to manage those. There are clearly areas where they're so important for the United States that we're going to have to raise those issues, and we'll continue to do so. The president's going to continue to do so. There might be some areas of cooperation, too, and we want to make sure we don't walk away from those. Yeah.
So I'm just going to kind of play these all through. He just heard Keir Starmer's voice. That's what you're seeing there.
Foreign policy and national security matters work best when you understand that point. Every country should do what's in the best interest of their country. And then where there are areas of alignment, where what's in our best interest and their best interests are aligned, that's where you have cooperation. That's where you have alliances. That's where you have strong bonds of friendship. When there's conflict, that's between what they want and what we want. That's where the work of diplomacy and these personal relationships between the leaders are so critical.
So you can see kind of what he's driving at here. He's describing something that's very, I mean, this sounds like Elbridge Colby, that we each have our spheres of influence, and we would like our spheres of influence to be complementary. Like, we're going to compete, but we also want to be able to complement each other. And we want to be proactively sure that there are places where we're actually going to come into conflict with one another. And we want to constantly reinforce the fact that we want to hammer all this stuff out diplomatically in good faith versus letting it escalate and letting the conflict get closer and closer to turning hot. And this is something that both the Chinese and the Americans have been very clear about at this point. Now, there are factions within America and factions within China that want it to turn hot. They're constantly trying to make it that way. So what we're seeing is two relatively besieged and yet persistent executives trying to drag their nations into a better, more collaborative relationship. Here's some commentary on Iran.
And there are times when some of those issues of conflict are irreconcilable. I think Iran is an example of that. That the clerical regime wants to have a nuclear weapon, and the world, led by President Trump, says that's completely impossible, cannot happen. So unfortunately, there's some areas like that where it comes up. But there are areas where if we can find areas of commonality, that's very powerful and important. But we will have to manage these bilateral differences because they're very significant. And when it's two big, powerful countries, you know, that falling apart could have tremendous significance on the global economy and on global peace. And there are...
So this is after they've already met and talked for a period of time. So there clearly does... It clearly is the case that there continues to be severe, bordering on irreconcilable differences that they're still trying to hammer out. Yeah, Flickerate, the world led by President Trump. My president leads the world.
China wants the world to be dependent on them for 100%, because it gives them strength and leverage. So that's a perfect example of an area in which our interests are not aligned. And but the president's very committed to bringing back factories, bringing back industrial capacity in the United States, and diversifying where we get our rare earths, our critical minerals, our supply chains.
So an area where they are currently effectively at loggerheads is, from Rubio's perspective. And the reason I picked these videos is because these are the ones that were tweeted out by the State Department. The State Department went and highlighted these specific comments. So I figured they were worth dwelling on for a moment. So China still is insistent that they want the entire world to be dependent upon them, and they're having to learn that there's only room for a single hegemon. This is he actually... He's got a good phrasing here as he describes this.
Yeah, I think my read has been what I think has been for a while, and that is China has a plan. I mean, they clearly view themselves, they believe they will be the world's most powerful country. They'll surpass the United States, and they have a plan to do it. And they're executing on that plan, and I don't blame them. If I were the Chinese government, I'd have the same plan. We, on the other hand, don't view it that way, and we don't want to see anything. We're not trying to constrain China, but their rise cannot come at our expense. Their rise cannot come at our fall. So there's an area where we're just going to have a difference of opinion. Yeah, I think...
So their rise cannot come at our expense. Like, we're fine if you rise. Yeah, rise, become more powerful, bigger, stronger, wealthier, whatever. But you're not going to turn it into a zero-sum thing with us. I think this is... Did I get the same video?
But my view of them and of the government in China is they're very confident. They have a plan, and they're trying to execute on that plan, which is fine. I understand that from a nation-state perspective, but when that plan is in conflict with the national interest of the United States, we need to do what's right for the United States. And that'll come up on this trip, but more importantly, that'll be a feature of this relationship for a long time. But
You know, I have to say, yeah, I'm very much Team JD, and I do not... I am not at 100% on the trust factor with Otto von Bismarck, even if I do very much like his trajectory as of right now. But I have to say, like, he's he's very good at communicating these things in a very natural and sincere way. And very rarely do I ever get the sense that he's bullshitting me. I've generally got a pretty good bullshit detector, I think. And even when he says stuff or does stuff that I disagree with, I don't get the sense that he's like lying to me or bullshitting, or that he's like a cynical actor. He strikes me as being a pretty sincere, authentic, straightforward guy. So I do appreciate that. Okay. Last thing today, we need to do a little celebration of the bald. Professor Peter St. Onge says it's official. Alberta will vote on independence after years of abuse from the rest of Canada. If it succeeds, it's 80% odds Alberta applies to join the U.S. Obviously, the state and condition of Canada is a very relevant thing at the current time, particularly with respect to China, and also, as it seems, the enemy, the baddies, the European technocratic establishment and their craven financier backers. They are trying to maintain a stronghold in Canada. So there's multiple benefits to the United States peeling Alberta away from Canada. Even just pulling Alberta into independence. Maybe it starts as independent and then becomes a U.S. territory, and like that, it would be absolutely critical from a defensive perspective, and it is a coup from an offensive perspective. So here is our great bald.
Canada's Texas is threatening divorce and could become the 51st state. Alberta leaving Canada is moving from bumper sticker to reality as organizers announced they've collected over 300,000 signatures for a referendum to leave Canada. That's almost twice the signatures needed, triggering a vote in October where Albertans can vote whether to leave Canada, along with a series of questions like voter ID and limiting welfare to migrants. According to prediction market Cali, odds of independence are now 1 in 4, which is up from 1 in 10 last December. So the background here is Alberta is basically what happens if Texas marries Wyoming and then gets trapped in an HR seminar run by Ottawa. More important, Alberta is by far the richest province in Canada thanks to roughly 160 billion barrels of oil. It's about 3 times the reserves of the entire United States. That would make Alberta the number 4 reserve in the world, just behind Saudi Arabia. In fact, Alberta is so wealthy, it funds the rest of Canada to the tune of $15,000 a year per household, which bothers Albertans, especially when the rest of Canada is trying to kill Alberta's golden goose, blocking pipelines and imposing carbon taxes to the point Alberta exports just 1/10 the ratio of oil reserves as the U.S. The other half is politics. The rest of Canada looks at Albertans as toothless rednecks, since Alberta is by far the most conservative province in Canada. The last national election, Conservatives won 64% of the vote in Alberta and almost 90% of federal seats. This puts Alberta at constant loggerheads with Ottawa on everything from firearm ownership to free speech and religion. This all came to a head in the 2022 trucker protests against COVID restrictions. In Alberta, crowds lined highways cheering the truckers. In Ottawa, Justin Trudeau seized their bank accounts to try to starve them out while running down grandmothers with riot cops. It's coming to an even bigger head with a bevy of federal hate speech laws that target conservatives and Christians. Multiple Canadian pastors have been prosecuted for criticizing homosexuality, including a former school trustee fined $750,000 and gagged for life for calling transgenderism, quote, biologically absurd, which of course it is. Another Alberta pastor was sentenced to 12 months house arrest for protesting drag queen events for children. Tribunals in BC and Ontario have levied $10,000 fines for misgendering, while Professor Jordan Peterson was famously ordered to pay $25,000 and undergo pre-noun re-education or lose his license. So this next brought to you by the Bitcoin Way. If Alberta secedes, the question is, does it go alone as the Saudi Arabia of the North, or does it join America as the 51st state? Odds on Cali are running 4 in 5 that an independent Alberta does apply for statehood. Politically, it would be around Texas or Kansas, so red but not super red. Economically, it would also be around Texas or Kansas, smack dab in the middle, but with enormous upside prospects from 10xing oil exports. Alas, new states are subject to the filibuster, and Democrats would obviously block a new red state. At best, they might bundle it with a blue Puerto Rico or D.C. statehood. As for Albertans, whether they go it alone or join the U.S., it would be a vast improvement economically and politically from the abuse they suffered today. Get all last week's videos in a single 20-minute podcast. Search Peter St. Onge wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.
So I happen to be of the mind that Alberta would be best suited going independent for a period of time. And maybe go straight to a territory, but I don't even think that would be necessarily prudent. I think their best case scenario would be attaining independence and then getting ducks in a row and allowing the U.S. political situation to stabilize a little bit before actually applying for admittance to the Union. But many, many big things, lots of tectonic shifts occurring. A very exciting time to be alive. That is the Lab for today. Thank you to everyone for showing up and listening. MAGA Cox in the chat in honor of our great president. Thank you for your contributions to the Erickson cause. Reminder that you can go to tips.kingpill.com and you can support the cause anytime. Just go over there and send a tip in, and I'll play it when the show starts. And then you can also go to Cash App or Venmo. I'll get those rolled into the total as well. I forgot to shout out Paul this morning, who sent over $5 on Cash App. Thank you to Paul. Thank you to Lurch for the magical internet money this morning. And yeah, go follow t.me/kingpill so you get regular alerts on the Telegram channel. Go join the Kingpill Discord, kingpill.com. Download the EWBSX app. Consume all of the content. And I will be back here tomorrow morning for the Fry Lab. Until then, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trump